Chapter 707. However, he did not feel much fear in his heart. The Confucian god Wang Xuezhi might be very powerful. If it was before, he would have no chance of winning. But now he had reached the late stage of the golden elixir realm, and his strength had increased greatly. He believed that even if he could not defeat Wang Xuezhi, he would not be too far behind. At least, it would not be difficult for him to escape. However, the reward of the mystical classic of creation is to kill this Confucian god Wang Xuezhi. Ziyue frowned when he thought of Taoist Su Xian's condition. He was confident that he could escape from Wang Xuezhi, or at least not lose. But if he wanted to kill Wang Xuezhi, based on Wang Xuezhi's record and the fact that he had never fought him, he was not too confident. There's no hurry. With the speed of my strength improvement, I will be able to kill him sooner or later. Ziyue was calm. At most, he would wait for a while until his mystical classic of creation reached the peak of the golden elixir realm, or until his Dharma form and 9 extinction divine sword reached perfection. He was not in a hurry. Of course, killing Wang Xuezhi is only the reward of the mystical classic of creation. As for the information of the formation masters, I can give it to you and help you get a recommendation letter. But the 1,000 feather star, 1,000 changing water, earth spirit rhinoceros, and other materials need to be exchanged with treasures. We have 7 of the 9 main materials in our vault. We also know where the remaining 2 may be. As long as you pay the price, we can send someone to get them for you. Taoist Su Xian spoke again. Of course. Ziyue nodded. As Taoist Su Xian said, there was a price for everything. The 1,000 feather star and other materials were valuable. They were ancient materials, so they were naturally precious. However, he truly did place great importance on the all-heaven armor. He knew that it would be a great treasure for him to protect himself in the future. Moreover, it was an extremely rare treasure that could defend against physical and energy attacks, as well as soul attacks. Anyone who saw it would be tempted. Even if the price was high, he wanted to give it a try. There are 3 methods. You can choose one. Taoist Su Xian nodded and said, First, treasures. Enough treasures, 3 low-grade origin spirit treasures, or 1 mid-grade origin spirit treasure. Ziyue frowned. 3 low-grade primordial spirit treasures, or a mid-grade primordial spirit treasure. The Daluo armor that he wanted to forge this time would only be a low-grade soul treasure at most when it was completed. He would have to hire an early 5th-tier blacksmith to forge it. In the end, just the materials alone required 3 essence soul treasures. One had to know that even a large sect like the Qingshu sect did not have a single lower-grade primordial spirit treasure. Secondly, the inheritance of the cultivation method that fellow Taoist has cultivated. This cultivation method inheritance was the most precious, but also the least valuable. This was because to those who had it, it was nothing. However, to those who didn't, it was exactly what they wished for. However, fellow Taoist, you don't have to worry that we will recklessly spread the cultivation method after we obtain it. Furthermore, you don't have to think that we are really coveting fellow Taoist inheritance. This is because there are simply too many cultivation method inheritances in Mount Qingxian. Not only do we have cultivation method inheritances that reach the pinnacle of the primordial spirit realm, but we also have an attack method left behind by a mighty figure of the immortal path. No matter how powerful your cultivation method is, can it compare to the heritage of Mount Qingxian that has been preserved for 100,000 years? Taoist Su Xian smiled and said, he did have the right to be arrogant. Mount Qingxian had been in power for 100,000 years. At its peak, it was even more powerful than the 9-star Taoist palace. It even had the existence of a mighty figure of the immortal path. What kind of cultivation method inheritance did it not have? It was just that collecting cultivation method inheritances seemed to be an instinct of the major immortal path factions. This was also one of the reasons why many factions were able to achieve eternal glory. Only when the cultivation method was not destroyed could they rise again. What about the third method? Ziyue asked noncommittally. The third method is for us to sign a blood contract with fellow Taoist. Fellow Taoist will serve Mount Qingxian for 100 years. For high-level cultivators like you and me, 100 years will pass in the blink of an eye. Furthermore, we will only ask fellow Taoists to complete 3 tasks for us at most, and most of them will be assigned according to the strength of the Golden Elixir Realm cultivator. For someone like fellow Taoist who can go against the odds and slay immortals, this is very easy. Taoist Su Xian paused and smiled. However, I think that since fellow Taoist is not even willing to officially join Mount Qingxian, you would be even more unwilling to sign a blood contract and be bound by us for 100 years. Ziyue nodded. He was indeed unwilling to choose the third method. The third method seemed to cost nothing, but the price was actually greater, especially for him. The height that he could reach in 100 years might be beyond Taoist Su Xian's imagination. A mighty figure of the immortal path? Or even stronger. He did not want to be bound by this. So, fellow Taoist, are you choosing to give away your cultivation method inheritance? Taoist Su Xian guessed. No, Ziyue shook his head. Perhaps it was as Taoist Su Xian said, that Mount Qingxian did not care about his cultivation method inheritance. However, in Ziyue's opinion, even if his cultivation method inheritance could only be cultivated to the peak of the Golden Elixir realm, it would definitely surpass any other cultivation method in the world. He did not know if there was a cultivation method inheritance of the same level in Mount Qingxian, but he was not willing to give it away so easily. Moreover, Taoist Su Xian said that he was unwilling, but he did not know if it was true. After all, his strength and realm were there for all to see. If Mount Qingxian wanted to find the source, they would definitely find the answer from his cultivation method. Otherwise, they would not have made the cultivation method inheritance one of the conditions. Therefore, he said faintly, I choose the first method, 3 lower primordial soul treasures. As he said that, he flipped his hand, and 3 lower primordial soul treasures were taken out from his hand. These 3 primordial soul treasures were the spoils of war that he obtained after killing the 3 primordial soul realm cultivators, Patriarch Bitter Chick, Patriarch Rising Cloud, and Lu Changqing. With his strength and means, these lower primordial soul treasures would not be able to increase his strength by much. It would be better to exchange them for what he needed. Therefore, he did not hesitate. Then, he tapped on the Mount Qingxian token and activated the positioning method and the item transportation formation. Whoosh! A special spiritual light was emitted and directly sucked the 3 lower primordial soul treasures into it. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In a burst of intense spiritual light, the 3 lower primordial soul treasures were transported by the transportation formation. One day later, I will send you the location information of the array masters in the firmament territory, as well as the possible location of the Confucian god, Wang Xueji. You are on your own. Taoist Su Xian's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise when he saw this, and then he cut off the transmission. Ziyue looked at the Mount Qingxian token and then put it away into the northern underworld grotto heaven. After a moment of silence, he got up and did not stay there any longer. Soon, he left. Chapter 708. Overall, he was quite satisfied with this deal, although the price was great. He had killed Wang Xueji and obtained 3 inferior primordial spirit treasures. Among them, killing Wang Xueji was something that he had to do the moment Wang Xueji was sent to attack him. It was also convenient for him to be able to exchange it for the inheritance of an advanced 5th-grade weapon craftsman. It was already a bargain for him. As for the 3 inferior primordial spirit treasures, they were very valuable. It was indeed extremely valuable, but in his view, exchanging 3 treasures that he had no use for the Origin Immortal armor that could protect him in the future was definitely worth it. He would not regret it. Next, let's continue forward. For me now, whether it is the cloud-piercing mountain range or the Gusha mountain range, it is not suitable for me to stay for long. I can only go forward to the place where the spirit chi is more abundant and there are more experts. Only then can I continue to improve and grow. Ziyue's goal was clear. He knew very well that his strength was built up from the souls of a large number of powerhouses. In places like the cloud-piercing mountain range and the Gusha mountain range that were relatively poor in resources, there were very few experts. The strongest were only at the peak of the Golden Core realm and the early stage of the Primordial Spirit realm. Their strength was not high, and their numbers were limited. Unless he killed everyone in these two areas, it would be difficult to accumulate his strength and continue to improve. In his heart, he was not the kind of crazy person who liked to kill. If it did not provoke him, he would not deliberately make a move. Therefore, he could only go forward to the place where resources were abundant, spirit chi was abundant, and experts were abundant. In the firmament territory, the place with the most experts is the purple-green mountains where the Celestial Spirit sect and the Nature sect are located. The two super forces, one in the north and the other in the south, are in the mountains. In addition, there are various immortal method forces and sects everywhere. Countless experts gather. One can imagine how rich the resources are here. The number of experts that can be born must be very large. Ziyue muttered to himself. Even if he had already formed a deadly feud with the Celestial Spirit sect. But he could not retreat and not go to the purple-green mountains because of this. Not to mention, he still remembered his agreement with Fan Xingyu and Zhao Yuer. Since he had agreed, he naturally had to abide by it. He had to meet them. It will take at least 2 days to reach the purple-green mountains from here, even if I travel at full speed. If we drive a warship, it will take at least half a month. Ziyue was not in a hurry. Therefore, with a thought, he summoned the warship. Even for him, the speed of the warship was relatively slow. However, with the help of the warship, he was able to cultivate at the same time. Knowing that a strong enemy was about to make a move on him, he naturally had to fight for even the slightest bit of time to improve his strength. Wong, Wong, Wong. The array was activated, and the warship rose into the air. He pushed his speed to the limit and rushed forward in one direction. As for Ziyue, he sat cross-legged in one of the secret cultivation rooms on the battleship. With a flip of his hand, he produced a jade bottle. As soon as Zhang Xian opened the jade bottle, a 9-color divine light slowly rose into the air. It was the 9-extinction godly fiend that was necessary to cultivate the 9-extinction godly sword. He performed a hand seal, causing the flying sword in his body to dash out and execute a series of mystical techniques. As a unique godly glow was emitted from the sword, he immediately directed it to merge the streams of the 9-extinction godly aura into it. Chi! There was a soft trembling sound as the two merged. Then Ziyue performed the 9-extinction godly sword and absorbed it into his body. The power of the pure purple elixir essence was activated, and it quickly began to refine the unique 9-extinction godly aura. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, by Ziyue's eyes flickered with excitement all of a sudden. The 9-extinction godly sword is indeed a sword deity Dao technique. Not only is it difficult to perform, but it is also much more difficult to form a Dao technique seed in my body than ordinary super skills. Even with my refining power, it took me a full 5 minutes to refine the 9-extinction godly aura. Ziyue could not help but sigh. The most difficult part of refining the 9-extinction godly aura was not to completely dissolve it and refine it into the body. It was the 9-extinction murderous aura that was contained within the aura. The 9-extinction murderous aura directly affected his mind and willpower. Once his mind was unstable, the refining progress would be slowed down. If his willpower was destroyed by the impact, the aura would spread and cause damage to the cultivator's body. Ziyue's willpower was not bad, but he had underestimated its strength at the beginning. In his fluster, he naturally wasted time. Continue. Although the 9-extinction godly aura's impact is strong, it is not a problem for me. Ziyue began to refine it again. He reached out and began to perform the 9-extinction godly sword cultivation method while guiding the aura. This time, he directly guided 3 streams of 9-extinction godly aura into it. Boom, boom, boom. 3 streams of 9-extinction godly aura attacked at the same time, and its strength was naturally much stronger than one. However, Ziyue's willpower was as strong as steel and as immovable as a mountain. He was continuously attacked, but he did not collapse. The power of the pure purple elixir essence in his body circulated slightly and began to slowly refine the 9 extinction godly aura. Phew! After more than 10 minutes, the 3 streams of 9 extinction godly aura were completely refined. Dewey heaved a sigh of relief, and his eyes regained their clarity. 3 streams. Although it is a little difficult, it is still not my limit. Next, let's try 5 streams. With a thought, he began to perform the absorption again. This time, 5 streams of 9 extinction godly aura entered his body. Boom, boom, boom. The strong impact of the aura made Ziyue's head dizzy. However, he guarded his spiritual altar tightly and maintained his consciousness. The power of the pure purple elixir essence continued to circulate and refine the aura. Finally, he managed to refine the 5 streams of aura quickly. After 5 streams, another 5 streams, he did not continue to increase the number of streams of aura he refined at once. It was not that he could not bear it, but it was the most efficient method that he had tested. If there were more, he could bear it. However, the time needed to absorb and refine the aura would be much longer. Time passed by as he repeated the process. After a day, Ziyue felt that his body was bloated. He felt a little tired in his mind. Have I reached my limit? It is difficult to refine more 9 extinction godly aura in a short period of time. Ziyue could not help but let out a long sigh. The 9 extinction godly aura was not compatible with cultivators. Only with the help of the 9 extinction godly sword Dao technique could one refine it into one's body and condense it into a Dao technique seed. At this moment, it was obvious that the number of 9 extinction godly aura had exceeded the limit that his body could bear. He needed to cultivate and refine it to get used to more 9 extinction godly aura entering his body. That was why he felt bloated. If there were more, the 9 extinction godly aura in his body might go berserk. Chapter 709. Seeing this, Ziyue did not force it. He stopped his cultivation. The Ziji golden elixir in his body trembled, and a huge amount of elixir essence flowed, turning into a raging river. His mind was immersed in his body, and he began to sort out the 9 extinction divine wraiths in his body. Bit by bit, he transformed it into a Dao technique seed. This was also a work that required time and effort. A Dao technique seed was many times more complicated than a superpower seed. In addition to refining it, he also needed to sort out its structure. Only then would his physical body be able to adapt to the power of the Dao technique and use it smoothly. The 9 extinction divine sword is not the primary magnetic divine light. The primary magnetic divine light has the primary magnetic cut as a prerequisite and can be improved directly through spiritual energy. The cultivation of the 9 extinction divine sword can only rely on myself to refine it bit by bit. It requires time and effort. At least, it is like this before I reach the entry level. Ziyue understood. Before his attributes panel could be upgraded, he had to cultivate a certain technique to the entry level. Now that he had not reached the entry level of the 9 extinction divine sword, he naturally could not upgrade it. However, after a few hours of cultivation, I managed to cultivate this Dao technique to the level of uninitiated 8%. Based on my calculations, I estimate that I will be able to officially initiate this Dao technique in around 10 days. Ziyue's gaze fell on his attributes panel as he silently calculated. As for the Great Path Dharma form, it was difficult for him to upgrade it due to the lack of cultivation materials. Of course, he had also borrowed the power of Qing Xian Mountain to begin collecting the cultivation materials for this Dao technique. Although the price was a little more expensive than usual, Bai Ziyue had just cleaned out the Mirror Lake mystic realm of the 9-star Dao Palace, so he was quite rich. 70 to 80,000 superior spiritual stones were nothing to him now. 3 days later, Ziyue appeared in the sky above a sea. The boundless sea. I didn't expect this place to be so close to the boundless sea. Is my hometown, the ancient barren region, across from here? Ziyue looked into the depths of the sea. Even with his eyesight, he could not see the border. It felt like the end of the endless sea was directly connected to the heavens and earth. The rising and setting of the sun was also completed at the end of the sea. This sea is countless times larger than the sea in my previous life. Zeus sighed. With his current eyesight, he could see clearly from thousands of miles away if he tried his best to look around without any obstructions or obstructions. But even under such circumstances, it was still difficult to see the end of the sea. Only a few islands would appear in his eyes. One could imagine how vast the sea was. As expected of the endless ocean, there were countless creatures. There were also a lot of killings. Just by staying here for a while, I could clearly feel the increase in my soul power. It's several times faster than on land. Zeus was suddenly startled as he looked at the attribute panel. Previously, due to the increase in his spiritual energy after his breakthrough, he was only left with about 50 million spiritual energy points. After 3 days of hurrying, he only managed to increase his spiritual energy to 57 million spiritual energy points. But now, from the time he approached the sea to the time he actually landed in the sea, it had only been half an hour. The number of his spiritual energy had soared by a large margin, reaching the level of 60 million. The spiritual energy here is obviously not weak. In the sea, not only are there countless fish, but there are also many sea beasts that have evolved into monsters through the spiritual energy. The survival of the fittest is natural selection. Naturally, there is no lack of killing and devouring. Zeus flew out of the warship, and a divine light flashed in his eyes. He looked through the sea and looked at the bottom of the sea. He really had a feeling that everything in the world was in his eyes. There were too many fish, prawns, turtles, and crabs. And because of the abundant spiritual energy of heaven and earth, most of them had evolved. Even if they did not directly transform into monsters, most of them had mutated. Their strength and size were far greater than before. My spiritual energy has been consumed a lot because of the increase in my realm. Now, whether I want to continue to improve or need to borrow spiritual energy to improve my Tao Technique 9 Extinction Divine Sword to Perfection, I need a lot of spiritual energy. 60 million spiritual energy points is too little for Maine. It's not safe. Why don't I borrow the help of the countless creatures in the sea to strengthen my soul energy? Zeus still felt a sense of danger in the depths of his heart. It was not only because he already knew that the 9-star Tao Palace was going to send out the Confucian god Wang Shueji to attack him. It was also because of the Heavenly Spirit sect and the True Demon sect. Although he did not know anything about the movements of these two superpowers from Taoist Su Xian, the more it was like this, the more worried he was. No news is the most dangerous, because no one knows what kind of experts these two superpowers will send out to attack me. Zeus did not think that the two superpowers would give up on hunting him down. They would only launch a thunderous attack. The longer they waited, the more powerful their forces would be. The sea beasts here are still a little weak. I still need to go deeper. If Zeus wanted to increase his spiritual energy, he naturally needed to kill more and stronger sea beasts. At most, the sea beasts here were equivalent to the Aperture Awakening realm. It was difficult for him to be satisfied, and so he quickly rushed out of the sea. Su 2, how long are we going to keep watch here? On a small island, a group of people occupied a thatched cottage that was large enough for several people to sit cross-legged. The sea breeze blew recklessly, causing the thatched cottage to creak and groan. Within the thatched cottage, a slightly younger cultivator leaned against the left side of the cottage and asked the person who appeared to be the oldest among them. Obviously, it was Su 2. However, although Su 2 was said to be the oldest, upon closer inspection, he was only around 30 years old. It was only because he had been exposed to the scorching sun for a long time, coupled with the sea breeze blowing, that his face appeared to be dark and dry, giving him an aged appearance. The four of them were all Aperture Awakening realm cultivators. The strongest was naturally Su 2, who was in the late Aperture Awakening realm. The other three were in the mid-Aperture Awakening realm, and the other two were in the early Aperture Awakening realm. When? Our observation point is the furthest from the giant whale immortal city. Once a large number of sea beasts appear, we will need to warn them. If we fail to warn them in time, the losses caused are not something you or I can bear. Therefore, we need someone to keep watch here. You just arrived and do not know. Sutu and Little Fan have been here for 10 years. Before Sutu could speak, a cultivator beside him hastily replied. Chapter 710. Sutu smiled and said, "Although there are countless sea demons in the boundless ocean, there are two primordial spirit realm powerhouses in the giant whale immortal city. We also have a large defensive formation. Therefore, the larger the sea demon group, the less they dare to attack us. In the past 10 years, what we encountered the most were small groups of sea demons. As long as we can find them in advance and ask for help from the rear, they won't be a big threat." The location of the island they were on was very important. It happened to be at the border between the shallow sea and the deep sea. In the shallow sea, the number and strength of the sea demons were relatively limited. Naturally, it was relatively safe. However, in the deep sea, there were many sea demons. Moreover, the deep sea was relatively rich in all kinds of resources. Naturally, it was easy for powerful sea demons and sea demon groups to be born. In order to guard against the attacks of large sea demon groups, they were here to guard against the attacks of large sea demon groups. Of course, they were here to warn the sea demons. After the warning, stronger existences would come and attack the sea demons that entered the alert area. For us, the most dangerous ones are the sea demons that are alone. Because unless the strength of a single sea demon is above the god realm, even if we have the sea watching pearl, we won't be able to find them at all. The late-stage enlightening realm cultivator sighed and said, "The sea watching pearl was a special treasure in the giant whale immortal city used to detect large sea demon groups. When a number and strength of sea demons reached a certain level and were within 30 miles of them, the sea watching pearl would automatically warn them. The sea watching pearl's warning also had its limitations. If there were only one sea demon that had not reached the god realm and approached them, it would be a great threat to them. Therefore, in addition to the sea watching pearl, we must also carry the sea watching mirror with us." As Sutu spoke, he held an oval mirror in his hand. He controlled the flow of spiritual energy and looked at it. In an instant, the originally misty area in the boundless sea became clear. In the depths of the sea beasts that occasionally swam by also appeared in front of him. Since he had taken out the sea-watching mirror, Sutu quickly controlled it and began to observe the surrounding area. Suddenly, he saw a huge sea monster that looked domineering. In addition to 8 huge feet, it was carrying 2 huge pincers in front of it. He immediately shuddered. Oh no, it was a giant crab. Such a physique was at least equivalent to the peak of the aperture opening realm. "Quick, release it, it's too late." As he spoke, he heard a loud bang. The sea surface exploded. Then, a huge sea crab that was at least 3 feet tall rushed onto the island and charged toward them. It was the giant crab. The giant crab was one of the few sea demons that could maintain a strong combat power, even when out of the water. It was comparable to the peak of the aperture opening realm and was definitely the biggest threat to them. Puff, puff, puff. Before the giant crab could even stand firm, a series of water spells had already shot out like a stream of light. "Quick, send the signal." As Sutu spoke, he raised a defensive shield and rushed forward while gritting his teeth. A sparkling flying sword quickly slashed forward. Bang, bang, bang. One after another, the water arrows landed on his defensive shield, creating a huge trembling sound. His flying sword slashed forward, but was blocked by the giant crab's 2 huge pincers. Clang! Amidst the trembling sound, the flying sword returned without any effect. Sutu's face was gloomy. The toughest parts of the giant crab were its shell and its 2 giant pincers. Its defensive power was so strong that his flying sword could only leave a white mark on it. Finally, at this time, the rest of the people reacted and took out their respective spiritual weapons, attacking the giant crab with all their might, slowing down its advance. However, In the face of the giant crab's unparalleled defensive power, their attacks were completely useless. Soon, the giant crab endured the attacks and quickly closed in. Occasionally, it would pause for a moment, and its yuan qi would fluctuate violently. Then it would shoot a water arrow. Qi! Boom! The water arrow was extremely powerful and quickly blasted on Su Tu's defensive shield, causing the spirit light on his shield to quickly dim and crack. Then, the giant crab stretched out a giant pincer and hit Su Tu's defensive shield with irresistible force. Bang! The high-grade spirit weapon defensive shield was quickly shattered. Then, the pincer's strength did not decrease and quickly clamped down. It's over. Su Tu closed his eyes in despair. The gap between the two sides was too big. Due to the factor of their size, the strength of the sea demon was originally superior to the practitioners of the same realm. Not only was the giant crab huge in size, its strength and realm were also far superior to Su Tu and the others. Under its powerful attack, it naturally crushed them easily. The outcome seemed to have been predetermined. Puff! At the same time as the strong wind hit, a crisp sound was heard. Following that, Su Tu felt a sticky, fishy smell on his face and body, causing him to vomit. He hurriedly opened his eyes. Bang! He just happened to see that the incomparably tall and powerful giant crab was completely penetrated from top to bottom. Then, it fell heavily and smashed onto the ground. Dead? He hurriedly raised his head and happened to see a young man in white floating in mid-air in the distance. He seemed to be maintaining the posture of pointing a finger and looked extremely relaxed. This young man was naturally Ziyue. He was flying in the sea when he saw the four people on the island from afar. He was about to ask for directions when he saw the giant crab charging out of the sea to ambush them. He casually used a star-shattering finger to help them resolve this crisis and save them. Say, Senior. Su Tu shuddered. He quickly bowed and said respectfully, "Thank you for saving us, Senior. Otherwise, we would have died." "Thank you, Senior. Thank you for saving us, Senior." Behind Chief Su, the other people also bowed and saluted one after another with extremely grateful looks on their faces. This time, it was too sudden and too dangerous. Even though they had sent out the distress signal, they knew it would take at least 30 breaths for the seniors guarding the island to arrive. There was no way they could make it in time. Ziyue had shown up at the right time. "You may rise." Ziyue waved his hand and said calmly, "I have something to ask you too. Are there any immortal cities nearby?" "Senior, there's an immortal city a few hundred li north from here. It's called the Giant Whale Immortal City. We are the city guards of the Giant Whale Immortal City." Su Tu hurriedly replied respectfully. Chapter 711. Giant Whale Immortal City? I didn't expect them to be so close. Ziyue frowned. He was a little surprised. Then his gaze fell on the bead in the thatched cottage. He asked curiously, "What's that?" "Senior, that's the ocean-gazing bead. It's an observation-type Dharma treasure. With the help of the ocean-gazing bead, we can see if there are large groups of sea demons nearby or if powerful sea demons are approaching. Of course, if human cultivators approach, the ocean-gazing bead will also sense it and give a warning." As Su Tu spoke, he carefully glanced at Ziyue. He was extremely shocked. The ocean-gazing bead emitted an extreme red light, which meant that Ziyue's aura was at least in the Golden Core realm. A Golden Core perfected cultivator? He had only seen such a big shot once in the Giant Whale Immortal City. How could he be so lucky to be so close to such a big shot? As for the two Essence Soul Realm Patriarchs in the Giant Whale Immortal City, they had been in seclusion for hundreds of years. The last time they came out was more than 50 years ago. At that time, he hadn't even stepped on the path of cultivation. Oh, how big is the detection range of the ocean-gazing bead? Ziyue couldn't help but look interested. He had stepped into the endless sea to hunt sea demons and obtain a large amount of soul energy. The ocean-gazing bead could detect large groups of sea demons nearby and give a warning in advance. It was very useful to him. It could detect an area of 30 miles around us. Su Tu said, "Only 30 miles? Bai Ziyu could not help but reveal a trace of disappointment. If he didn't consider the power of his domain, it could also detect an area of 30 miles away. Although the effect would be 10 times weaker if he went deeper into the sea. Wait. Dua suddenly paused and asked, does the 30 miles area calculate the distance under the sea? Yes. The main purpose of the ocean-gazing bead is to observe the number of sea demons under the sea. Our eyesight is enough to detect them above the sea. Su Tu answered honestly. They were aperture and lightning realm cultivators, after all, and had extremely sharp eyesight. Unless there were some special sea demons that could conceal themselves, once a sea demon showed itself, it would be impossible for the sea demon to escape their eyes within a radius of tens of miles. How much is this sea watching pearl? I'll buy it for you. Ziyu said immediately. Senior, if you want it, you could take the ocean-gazing pearl. Su Tu hurriedly said respectfully. Behind him, several people immediately revealed anxious expressions. The ocean-gazing pearl wasn't their personal possession. It was a rare treasure given to them by the giant whale city's city governor's estate to warn them of sea demons. It was so valuable that the four of them couldn't afford it, even if they sold everything they had. However, Su Tu was unmoved and looked sincere. This sea-gazing pearl is indeed useful to me. But I, Dark North, have never taken advantage of anyone in my life. Take the treasures in this bag of holding as compensation. Bai Ziyu was well aware of their little actions. He smiled lightly and casually tossed out a storage pouch. Then, with a wave of his hand, he directly took the ocean-gazing pearl. Then, he turned around and quickly soared into the distance. Su Tu, why did you give away the ocean-gazing pearl so easily? That belongs to the city governor's estate. Although the city governor's estate must have some in stock, we'll have to buy the ocean-gazing pearl ourselves. One ocean-gazing pearl is worth up to 30,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Even if the four of us give it everything we have, it'll still be difficult. Seeing Ziyu leave, the mid-stage aperture in lightning realm cultivator hurriedly spoke with an anxious expression. But soon, when Su Tu opened the bag of holding and took out the items inside, he immediately shut his mouth, and a look of extreme surprise flashed across his eyes. 4 low-grade flying swords, a jade slip that records the specific locations of 1,296 acupoints, a divine ability inheritance called the Great Strength Seal, and a water spirit technique that can reach the peak of the God realm. Seeing these treasures, the 4 people's faces were filled with shock. They were extremely happy. The value of any one of these treasures was no less than that of the ocean-gazing pearl. With so many treasures together, not to mention one ocean-gazing pearl, even if there were 5 or 10 of them, they would definitely be able to exchange for it. After all, although the ocean-gazing pearl was magical, it did not have any effect on the cultivator's strength. At most, it could give an early warning. In fact, a distance of 30 miles was not very useful for sea beasts whose strength had reached the God realm. However, the 4 low-grade flying swords could directly increase their strength. The 1,296 acupoints could also allow them to break through the limits of their original cultivation technique, ignite more acupoints, and increase their potential. One must know that when Ziyu was in the aperture and lightning realm, he had spent a lot of energy searching for as many acupoints as possible. He had almost visited many immortal cultivation sects in the ancient barren region. As for the divine ability inheritance and cultivation method inheritance, they were even more moved. Those were also things that could increase their strength. Opportunity, a great opportunity. To them, this was definitely a great opportunity. No one else had any complaints because of this. Instead, they were incomparably grateful. This ocean-gazing pearl, because of my approach, became more dazzling red. Obviously, it's because the spiritual fluctuation it sensed was too strong. Ziyu looked at the ocean-gazing pearl in his hand while flying. After all, he was also an advanced 3rd-grade weapon refiner. His eyesight was excellent, and he quickly saw some of the wonders of this treasure. He knew that it relied on the spiritual fluctuation that the cultivator unconsciously emitted to sense. He quickly restrained his aura. When his aura weakened to the level of the god realm, the red light on the ocean-gazing pearl immediately weakened, showing a light red color. And when he completely restrained his aura, it showed a pure blue color, which was similar to the color of the sea. It can only sense the aura of experts above the god realm, but not those below the god realm. It's really a rare treasure, and it's very suitable for me to use. Ziyue was very happy. Up to now, the amount of spiritual energy he needed to increase his strength was very large. Naturally, ordinary sea demons could not satisfy him. For example, the giant crab that he killed earlier, which was at the peak of the aperture in Lightning Realm, only gave him tens of thousands of spiritual energy points at most, which was a drop in the bucket and meaningless. Only sea demons of the God Realm, or even the Golden Core Realm, after killing them, would give him more spiritual energy and make him feel happy. And this ocean-gazing pearl happened to be able to sense sea demons above the God Realm, which was more suitable for him. Next, I'll enter the giant whale immortal city and find out which area has more sea demons. Ziyue put away the ocean-gazing pearl, then looked in the direction of the giant whale immortal city. Chapter 712. Half an hour later, Ziyue's figure appeared in a huge immortal city. Giant whale immortal city. The entire giant whale immortal city was huge. It occupied a larger area than the piercing cloud immortal city of Piercing Cloud Mountain Range and the Star Source immortal city of Gusha Mountain Range. Perhaps it was because they were on a huge island that could be attacked by sea demons at any time. But the aura of the formation that enveloped the entire Great Whale Immortal City was extremely powerful. It was almost on par with the defensive formations of some top immortal sections. Even late-stage primordial soul realm cultivators would be in danger of dying if they entered. Ziyue walked through the bustling stream of people that moved about ceaselessly. Some of them seemed to be in a hurry, some of them weren't in a hurry, and some of them weren't in a hurry. At some corners of the streets, there were even sounds of people hawking their wares, and they were selling various medicinal pills, spirit talismans, and other things. And perhaps because the land was different, the customs here were very different from the people of Piercing Cloud Mountain Range and Gusha Mountain Range. He could not help but feel that it was an eye-opener. Big Dao Business Alliance? Suddenly, Ziyue's eyes flickered as he saw a huge building in the distance. The Big Dao Business Alliance was one of the super forces that was not inferior to the 9-star Dao Palace, Heavenly Spirit Sect, Myriad Phenomenon Sect, and Green Xian Mountain. Its power was on the same level as the 9-star Dao Palace and spanned across many domains. However, this was his first time seeing the Big Dao Business Alliance's building symbol. It was so huge and majestic with so many people coming and going, he was even more surprised. After hesitating for a while, he could not help but step in. Soon, a cultivator who looked like an attendant came up to him respectfully. "Immortal Elder, please come in, please come in." The attendants of the Big Dao Business Alliance were all dressed neatly and had clean and beautiful faces. They were young, but all of them were at least 80% of Qi refinement. Although she could not tell Ziyue's exact strength, she could tell from his clothes and aura that he was definitely not ordinary. Therefore, she was very respectful on the surface. "Immortal Elder, what do you need?" she asked, just looking around. "What do you have here?" Ziyue said casually. "In terms of resources and treasures, our Grand Dao Business Alliance can be said to be the best in the entire astral boundary. However, in the Giant Whale Immortal City, our Great Dao Business Alliance definitely has everything you can buy in other shops. We also have everything you can't find in other places. Even if we don't have a stockpile, with the help of the Great Dao Business Alliance, as long as you name it and can afford it, we can get it for you." When your attendant saw this, his spirits were lifted, and he hurriedly explained. "Oh." Ziyue looked around. Spirit pills, spirit talismans, magical items, spirit materials, natural treasures, jade slips. A dazzling array of treasures was laid out on the counter, making it clear that this shop was many times more abundant than any other shop he had ever seen. It also added a sense of grandeur. He had only seen such magnanimity in his previous life, when the country was peaceful and the people were at peace. In this dangerous world of immortal spells, many shops wish they could use greater rays to seal and protect their treasures. Just this little difference between the two was huge. Of course, our Grand Tao Business Alliance is well known throughout the astral boundary, the attendant said confidently. Ziyue nodded. He didn't think the attendant was being overbearing. In the entire astral boundary, the Grand Tao Business Alliance was widely acknowledged to have the most treasures. Not only did the immortal sects need to rely on the Grand Tao Business Alliance to gather resources, but even the 9-star Tao Palace, Azure Mystic Mountain, Heavenly Spirit Sect, Myriad Sect, and other superpowers had worked closely with them. For example, Ziyue had asked Taoist Su Xian to gather the materials needed to refine the Daoyuo armor. At least 3 of them had been gathered with the help of the Grand Tao Business Alliance. Give me a map of the area around the giant whale, Immortal City. I need a detailed list of the surrounding factions and the locations of the sea monster tribes. Also, do you have a map of the astral boundary? Give me one as well. After some thought, Ziyue said, Senior, I'll be the one to receive you. Just when the attendant was about to reply, an old man approached carefully. He then looked at Ziyue respectfully and said, Hello, Senior. I'm a manager of the Great Tao Business Alliance here, Qian-san. Let me introduce you. Steward Qian. Yes. The attendant was startled when he saw this. He hurriedly responded respectfully and retreated carefully. As she retreated, she looked at Ziyue in shock. One had to know that Steward Qian held an extremely high position in the Grand Tao Business Alliance. The last person he had personally received seemed to be True Lord Gu of the city, Lord Manor. True Lord Gu was a Golden Core Realm expert and ranked among the top 10 in the giant whale Immortal City in terms of strength and status. Could this young man be a True Lord as well? Sure. Ziyue glanced at the attendant. A mid-divinity immortal spell realm wasn't considered weak. The attendant had obviously sensed his extraordinary aura and deliberately came to receive him. Senior, we naturally have the sea region map that you need. Not only does it indicate the islands near the giant whale Immortal City and the sea demon forces entrenched in the sea region, but also indicates their strength and danger levels. However, we only have a relatively simple map of the astral realm. As for the relatively detailed introduction of the forces and danger levels, we don't have any records. Of course, if you need, we can also apply to the higher-ups for secondment from other divisions. However, the price will be relatively high. The steward calmed himself down and replied. As he spoke, he invited Yi Fuqian to a quiet room and instructed someone to serve him immortal tea. How long will it take? Ziyue found a seat and sat down. With a flip of his hand, he took out a jade slip and said, And the materials listed here. Can you see if you can gather them here? The jade slip in his hand recorded the treasures and materials needed for the cultivation of the Great Tao Dharma form. It wasn't that he hadn't thought of borrowing the power of Mount Qingxian to gather the materials for the Great Tao Dharma form. However, after thinking about it, he finally hesitated. Previously, he had already borrowed the power of Mount Qingxian to gather the materials for the cultivation of the 9 Extinction Divine Sword. If he borrowed the power of Mount Qingxian to gather the materials for the Great Tao Dharma form, it would be equivalent to many of his techniques. There were almost no secrets in Mount Qingxian. Even if the other party couldn't know the progress of his cultivation, they would definitely know the Tao techniques that he cultivated if they became enemies in the future. Or if someone in Mount Qingxian leaked his techniques, he would be in a very passive situation. Therefore, he wanted to borrow the power of the Grand Tao Business Alliance to gather the materials for his Great Tao Dharma form. Chapter 713. If the Great Tao Business Alliance doesn't have any treasures in stock in the giant whale Immortal City, we'll borrow them from the neighboring branches. Generally speaking, if the nearest New Moon Immortal City has them, we'll be able to return in 10 days or so. If we send a message in advance, we'll be able to get them in 3 to 5 days. However, if we're separated by a few immortal cities, we'll need 10 or even 20 days. Of course, The exact time is also related to the value of the treasures you're purchasing. If the value of the treasures is too high, the Great Tao Business Alliance will send experts to escort them. Some immortal cities will even have super long-distance transportation formations between each other, so the speed will be even faster. Naturally, you'll need less time to get the treasures. A detailed map of the astral plane is usually worth around 10,000 upper-grade spirit stones. It'll definitely be delivered to you in less than a month. As Steward Zhao spoke, he respectfully took Ziyue's jade slip and scanned it with his consciousness. Then he was shocked. The number of treasures recorded in the jade slip was not a lot, but each of them was shockingly valuable. He only needed to do a quick calculation to know that the total value of this transaction was more than 200,000 upper-grade spirit stones. You want all of these? After a while, he looked at Ziyue in surprise. That's right. Is there a problem? Ziyue smiled faintly. No problem. It's just that we'll need some time to gather some materials. However, because the treasures you're purchasing this time are extremely valuable, even if we can't gather them in the Giant Whale Immortal City, we'll be able to get them from other branches. We'll be able to get them in about 10 days. Steward Zhao said quickly. 10 days. Ziyue frowned. He knew that the Great Tao Business Alliance had countless treasures and resources, and that any treasure could be obtained as long as one was willing to pay the price. However, this was only a branch after all. The materials he needed to cultivate the Great Tao Dharma would naturally be difficult to gather with just one branch. Therefore, he had already expected this. After thinking about it, he agreed and asked, how much are these materials and the map worth? 230,000 high-grade spirit stones. Manager Zhao took a deep breath and continued. If Senior is sure that you need it, we will immediately begin to prepare it for you. 10 days later, you can use our exclusive transaction certificate to collect it. By the way, Senior, do you have the trading token of our Great Tao Business Alliance? If you have a trading token, you can use it to obtain a certain discount. Furthermore, you can also waive the deposit required for the purchase of treasures. No, Ziyue shook his head. This was the first time he had stepped into the Great Tao Business Alliance, so he naturally did not have any trading tokens. Then I can help you get a trading token. Every time you trade, your points will be recorded in the book. Since one high-grade spirit stone was worth 1 point, 230,000 high-grade spirit stones were 230,000 points. Once you accumulated 100,000 points, you would be able to enjoy a 5% discount every time you made a transaction in the Great Tao Business Alliance. If you accumulated 1 million points, you would be able to enjoy a 10% discount. If it reaches 10 million, not only will the Grand Tao Business Alliance be notified every time we hold a super large auction, you can also use the token to be protected by the Grand Tao Business Alliance. Even if you become the enemy of the world, the Grand Tao Business Alliance will be able to protect you. Furthermore, when some immortal abodes or mystic realms are opened, you can also use this token to obtain a place to enter and exit. Steward Zhao said confidently. Oh, Ziyue was slightly taken aback and revealed a hint of surprise. Immortal abodes opened? Mystic realms opened? Obviously, there were many secrets in the immortal technique world that he did not know. However, it was normal when he thought about it. Although his strength had increased now, his understanding of the many secrets of the astral realm was naturally not as good as the elders of some top sections. This was actually the reason why he wanted to buy a map of the astral realm. He needed to understand more about this world. As far as he knew, only the Great Tao Business Alliance had a treasure like the map of the astral realm. As for the other forces, although they might also have it, they did not dare to sell it publicly because of the Great Tao Business Alliance. Then help me get one. Also, can you buy some treasures here? Therefore, he did not refuse. In addition, considering that he did not have enough upper-grade spirit stones, he also planned to dispose of some of his extra spoils of war. As he spoke, he handed over a storage pouch. Of course, Steward Zhao's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly said excitedly. An hour later, Ziyue walked out of the Great Tao Business Alliance. I've already obtained the sea map. However, the map of the astral realm and the many materials needed to cultivate the Great Tao Dharma form can only be obtained after 10 days. Ziyue pondered silently. Then I'll stay in the giant whale immortal city for 10 days. During this time, I can go into seclusion and cultivate the 9 extinction divine sword technique. Although his current situation could not be considered very safe, with his concealment methods, he believed that it would not be difficult for him to hide from the experts of the 9-star Tao Palace and the Heavenly Spirit sect for a period of time. Even if they could track his general location through some mysterious means, it would not be so easy to truly find him. Therefore, with a turn of his body, he arrived at a restaurant. Solitary, immortal abode. Ziyue entered a huge cultivation courtyard and was very satisfied with the environment. He did not linger too long in the outside world and went straight to the secret cultivation room. Sitting cross-legged on the stream, Ziyue did not immediately enter cultivation. Instead, he flipped his hand and a mirror-like disc appeared in his palm. This disc was specially made by the Great Tao Business Alliance and was a map of the sea within 10,000 miles of the giant whale immortal city. With a sweep of his consciousness, Ziyue entered the map. In an instant, the scene inside appeared in front of his eyes as if it had been revealed to him down to the smallest detail. It is indeed exquisitely made and can be freely scaled up. When expanded to the limit, it feels as if I'm there and can see many of the sea scenes. Ziyue's interest was greatly piqued. He could indeed feel some of the intricacies of the map. Then he shifted his gaze to the many islands and the various forces of the sea demon clans in the surrounding sea. There are so many. Just in the surrounding 3,000 miles, there are no less than 500 sea demon factions. When expanded to 10,000 miles, there are more than 10,000 of them. Moreover, there are as many as 5 super-large sea demon factions, each of which has an existence comparable to the primordial spirit realm. Ziyue could not help but be moved. Chapter 714. Even though he'd expected that there would definitely be countless terrifying and powerful existences in the distant sea region. But now, looking at the sea map, he finally understood the tip of the iceberg. It was indeed the tip of the iceberg. The endless seas were vast and boundless. Although the 10,000 miles around the giant whale immortal city was vast and boundless, it was not worth mentioning when compared to the entire endless seas. However, there were already so many powerful sea demons in this vicinity. What about the wider and deeper regions? Would there be beings comparable to the peak of the primordial spirit realm, or even mighty figures of the immortal Tao, just like in the immortal Tao world? The 5 super-large sea demon factions are the Spirit Turtle Clan, the Giant Whale Clan, the Thousand Fish Clan, the Bone Kuin Clan, and the Black Flood Dragon Clan. Although the Black Flood Dragon Clan is the smallest, with only a few dozen of them, they have many vassal factions. There are at least 3 large sea demon factions around the Black Flood Dragon Clan that serve them. The Thousand Fish Clan was the largest in number. This was a force formed by tens of thousands of fish and sea demons. Although their individual strength was not strong, when they joined forces to form the Thousand Fish Formation, their lethality was extremely high. However, the greatest threat to the human race is the Giant Whale Clan and the Bone Kuin Clan. These 2 sea demon factions are also the ones that many cultivators in the giant whale immortal city are most wary of. It is very dangerous to encounter these 2 factions in the sea. Ziyue looked at the map of the sea. He didn't expect that other than the dangerous areas, there were also some introductions of the various clans of forces. Even if he didn't deliberately go deep, he still understood many secrets that ordinary cultivators didn't know. It made him feel that it was worth it. No matter which of the 5 sea demon factions it is, if I hunt freely, it can greatly increase my soul energy. It can satisfy my needs to improve my strength and Tao techniques. However, the risks are also very high. If I am surrounded, I will be in deep danger. Therefore, I have to be careful. Ziyue thought. His gaze gradually fell on a place on the sea map, and a thoughtful look appeared on his face. Half an hour later, Ziyue put away the sea map. With a flip of his hand, he took out a jade bottle and opened it. Strands of 9 extinction divine aura gushed out. Start cultivating. Right now, my 9 extinction godly swords cultivation progress has already reached 27% of the uninitiated level. I will strive to officially master this Tao technique within these 10 days. Zue circulated the cultivation method of the 9 extinction divine sword, absorbing the strands of 9 extinction divine aura with all his might. As his cultivation progress increased, the efficiency of absorbing and transforming the 9 extinction holy aura increased as well. Until then, he could already absorb 10 strands of 9 extinction divine aura into his body without any discomfort. Chi, strands of 9 extinction godly aura entered his body and were transformed by the supreme primordial Tao power of the supreme primordial Tao power in his body. It was quickly refined into a special 9 extinction godly sword power. Then, under his control, it quickly condensed into a special Tao technique seed that was completely formed from the shape of a sword. Although the appearance of the Tao technique seed looked a little illusory and was not solid, it was like smoke that would dissipate with a gust of wind. However, in reality, although the sword shadow was illusory, it was as stable as a rock. Under Ziyue's supreme primordial Tao power's pressure, it became even more solid, and there was a majestic and sharp aura faintly being emitted. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, Ziyue continued to cultivate. Bottle after bottle of 9 extinction godly aura was absorbed and transformed into his body. The Tao technique seed of the 9 extinction godly sword in his body became more solid, and the cultivation progress shown on his stats panel was also increasing. 35%, 40%, 45%. Every day, he could feel his improvement. Although his real combat power did not increase, Ziyue was still looking forward to it. That was because he knew that all the hard work in the early stages was to master the 9 extinction godly sword. Once he reached the entry level of the Tao technique, he could use the attribute panel to directly upgrade it to full mastery. The power of a Tao technique at perfection could be seen from the Metamagnet Divine Light. As a sword immortal type, offensive Tao technique, the 9 extinction godly sword would be a cut above the Metamagnet Divine Light in the future. Coupled with his natal treasure, it would be even more powerful. He was very much looking forward to the day when the 9 extinction godly sword reached perfection. While Ziyue was in seclusion, a piece of news spread rapidly among the cultivators in the Great Whale Immortal City. The atmosphere in the city is getting more and more strange. I don't know if you've noticed, but there are more and more merchant ships entering and leaving the city from inland and other islands. Countless supplies are being shipped in. Moreover, the Azure Sea sect, Myriad Mystery sect, Chiofeng Ling, and other major factions have sent experts secretly to the city. That's not all. I've heard that Elder City Lord Hua, who hasn't shown his face in nearly 30 years, has secretly come out of seclusion. What about the one from Middle Cloud Island? There's no news yet, but I've heard that Middle Cloud Island security has tightened. Also, I don't know if you've noticed. Isn't it a little too peaceful for the islands in the sea recently? There hasn't been any news of sea monsters attacking our islands in nearly 3 months. News after news, and the reactions of the major factions seem to prove something. There was something fishy going on when things were out of the ordinary. The cultivators who'd been in a daze immediately came to their senses. Which immortal cultivator wasn't a giant among men? Those who could become experts had complex thoughts and could see the bigger picture from the smallest details. They knew very well what this meant. It looks like the Great Whale Immortal City, which has been peaceful for 50 years, is about to experience another wave. After a long while, an old cultivator sighed with emotion. His weathered eyes seemed to be recounting the tragedy and splendor of the battle between human cultivators and sea monsters 50 years ago. A great war is about to break out. I wonder how many cultivators are going to participate in it this time. How many experts will fall in this battle? Someone else spoke up with a hint of worry in their voice. However, more cultivators were quickly weighing the pros and cons after guessing the impending battle. Some of the more cautious ones immediately packed up their valuables and boarded warships that night to head inland. Of course, there were also those who discovered the opportunity and secretly gathered information about it. They actively purchased many defensive treasures in case of emergency. Cultivators were no different from mortals in all sorts of ways. Chapter 7:15. Giant Whale, Immortal City, City Lord Manor. A group of cultivators was gathered there. Other than Giant Whale City's new city lord, Hua Fengyu, even the previous city lord, Hua Dingshan, was present. Hua Fengyu was a middle-aged cultivator with a handsome face, like a middle-aged scholar. He was at the peak of the Golden Core realm. Although he hadn't been conferred the title of king, he was one of the few known to be able to rival a king. As for City Lord Hua Dingshan, he looked old, but he was a true cultivator who'd passed the lightning tribulation and reached the nascent spirit realm. He held an important position in Giant Whale Immortal City. With him around, Giant Whale Immortal City was as stable as Mount Tai. In addition, the patriarchs of the various cultivation clans and factions of the Great Whale Immortal City were also present. Everyone, I'm sure most of you have already guessed that there's been a lot of activity among the 5 major clans. It's rare for all 5 sea monster clans to simultaneously take a defensive stance against our Giant Whale Immortal City. Hua Fengyu, the city lord of Giant Whale Immortal City, was the first to speak. The outside world is abuzz with the news that the sea demons are going to fight us. We've heard about it as well. However, it's different this time. In the past, only the Giant Whale clan and the Bone Kuin clan were hostile to us human cultivators and frequently attacked us. However, the other 3 clans were much more restrained. Although there were small skirmishes, there weren't any major battles. However, this time, all 5 clans are preparing for battle. That's unusual. Wu Tung, the Wu clan's patriarch, said solemnly. That's right. Any one of the 5 sea monster clans is no weaker than our Giant Whale City. If they join forces, they'll be able to drown our Giant Whale Immortal City with their countless sea demons. If it weren't for the fact that they're at odds with each other and don't dare to attack us with their full strength, we wouldn't have been able to gain a foothold here. However, now that the 5 clans have joined forces, the other cultivator, Luin, also revealed a worried expression. This time, it can indeed be considered a great crisis. However, we have a much deeper understanding of the movements of the 5 sea demons than you do. I discovered that the 5 sea demon clans were acting in unison, but they didn't necessarily want to fight us. There's another reason. Hua Fengyu smiled and said, What reason? Everyone's expression changed. Do you know the Dragon Palace? Hua Fengyu said, Dragon Palace? What? Some of the cultivators were puzzled. However, those who knew the news of Dragon Palace were shocked. That's right, Dragon Palace. I think all of you should know that there is a huge trench in the middle of the 5 sea demon clans. That trench was no more than 300 miles long, but it was tens of thousands of meters deep. We usually call it the Netherworld Trench, but among the sea demons, it's called the True Dragon Trench. According to what we know, there's a secret place in the depths of the True Dragon Ravine. It is one of the entrances to the Dragon Palace. Although we don't know if it's true or not, we did check the ancient records and found that in the early days of the Endless Sea realm, the True Dragon Clan existed. The True Dragon Clan was one of the top clans in the ancient times. According to the ancient records, every true dragon divine beast possessed the strength of the primordial soul realm when they reached adulthood, with the advantage of their bloodline. As long as they cultivated a little harder and cultivated for a little longer, it would be extremely easy for them to step into the legendary Immortal Path realm above the primordial soul realm. The Dragon Palace is the residence of the True Dragon Clan. Hua Fengyu paused for a moment before continuing. Of course, although the Dragon Palace really did exist, it is actually the entrance of the True Dragon Palace. We can't be sure if the True Dragon Ravine is really the entrance to the Dragon Palace, or if the Dragon Palace is really inside. Therefore, we have to be careful when the 5 sea demon clans make a move together. But what if the incident in the Dragon Palace is true? Wu Ting couldn't help but ask. If it's true, we can't let it go. The Dragon Palace is the residence of the true dragon. Everyone knows that the true dragon clan loves to collect treasures. No matter what, we have to check it out. Moreover, even if the 5 sea demon clans have deep enmity with each other, they will always be enemies with us humans. Once they enter the Dragon Palace and obtain the treasures, their strength will increase greatly. It will be extremely disadvantageous for our great whale, Immortal City. Before Hua Fengyu could reply, Hua Dingshan, who had been silent all this while, spoke up with a determined expression. As he spoke, his aura faintly revealed a trace of sharpness. That's right. This is why we've gathered you all here. This time, even if the war doesn't happen, we have to be prepared for it. In addition, we have to pay close attention to the movements of the various sea demon clans. Once we confirm that the sea demon clans' powerhouses have disappeared, we have to take the initiative to attack and prepare for battle. Hua Fengyu said, but we can't be sure when the Dragon Palace will open. If we rashly enter the true dragon ravine, we might fall into a trap. In that place, our strength is far inferior to the sea demon clans. Moreover, we'll be isolated and without help. It's extremely dangerous. Someone hurriedly asked. Naturally, we won't do anything we're not confident in. We have our own information channels and can find out their movements. As for our strength, as Hua Fengyu was speaking, he suddenly felt his father, Hua Dingshan, standing beside him. His face was filled with astonishment at first, before a smile blossomed on his face as he said, "Welcome, Senior Mo fan. Pardon me for not going out to meet you." Saying this, Hua Dingshan's figure moved and rushed out of the main hall of the City Lord's mansion to greet a young Taoist who was slowly walking toward them from the void. The young Taoist revealed a faint smile, but there was a hint of arrogance in the depths of his eyes. Even though he didn't reveal his aura, when he got close, the void couldn't help but wrinkle. From the faint ripples that spread out, one could see how unusual he was. When the cultivators saw Hua Dingshan, who was in the early stage of the primordial soul realm, and their respectful expressions, they were shocked. At the same time, they also concluded that the newcomer was a primordial soul realm powerhouse. Furthermore, his strength might be much stronger than the City Lord's. Mid-stage primordial soul realm? Late-stage primordial soul realm? Wait, Senior MO fan? Could this person be the true supremacy MO fan who was skilled in both sword and palm techniques, and who had once slaughtered 100,000 demons by himself? If it was really him, then it was very normal for the City Lord to have such an expression. This was because this was indeed a peerless powerhouse, a true cultivator with strength at the peak of the intermediate stage of the primordial soul realm. Chapter 716. Furthermore, not only was true supremacy MO fan powerful and had a world-shaking battle record, but his background was also extraordinary. He was the junior brother of the peak master of the Heavenly Spirit sect, the second most powerful person in the Heavenly Spirit sect. He was enough to be ranked in the top 10 in the entire Heavenly Spirit sect. Therefore, after guessing the identity of the person who had come, many cultivators revealed a look of realization on their faces. Then, they couldn't help but show respect on their faces. They were even a little excited. If true supremacy MO fan of the Heavenly Spirit sect participated in this trip to the Dragon Palace, then their chances would be even greater. Although all cultivators had the idea of monopolizing the benefits, they knew better that if they wanted to snatch food from the tiger's mouth and the 5 great sea monster clans, they would need to have tyrannical strength. Just them alone was far from enough. After 10 days of cultivation, I still haven't completely mastered the 9 extinction godly sword technique. However, the progress of my cultivation has increased greatly. Although I haven't truly mastered it, I'm already at 99% of the uninitiated level. I'm only a little bit away from officially mastering it. I just need to touch something, and I'll be able to directly master it. Ziwe slowly opened his eyes, and a trace of satisfaction appeared on his face. Although he hadn't mastered the 9 extinction godly sword technique, he was only one step away. Another thing worth mentioning was that after he felt that the progress of the 9 Extinction Divine Sword was slowing down, he did not stay idle. Not only did he study the Great Path Dharma form in detail, as long as he had the materials, he would be able to cultivate it. He also began to cultivate the Creation Mysterious Classic. After all, he had the foundation of refining and was an advanced third-grade blacksmith. He had a lot of experience in the cultivation of refining, so his cultivation progress was very fast. In just a short period of time, he had already raised the cultivation progress of the Creation Mysterious Classic from nothing to 53% of the uninitiated level. Perhaps in a few days, he would be able to officially master it and use his soul energy to raise it. Everything is going on in an orderly manner. If there wasn't someone chasing after me, then everything would be perfect. Ziyue's eyes darkened slightly. In his heart, he was a person who yearned for peace and freedom and didn't like killing. However, there were always some people and some things that forced him to raise his butcher's knife. Only after long, while did he shift his thoughts away from this aspect. Then he stood up, and without staying in this cultivation courtyard for long, he directly walked out. Just now, the Great Tao Business Alliance had sent him a message. The map of the astral plane and many materials for cultivating the Dharma form that he had ordered had been delivered, and he needed to collect them. It just so happened that his cultivation of the 9 Extinction Sacred Sword had reached a bottleneck. Naturally, he turned his attention to the Great Path Celestial Appearance. Once he mastered this Tao technique, his strength would increase even more than the 9 Extinction Godly Sword. After all, he already had the primary magnetic divine light by his side. The power of the 9 Extinction Sword technique might be stronger when it was fully cultivated, but there was a limit to how strong it could be. Naturally, it was not as good as a supportive Tao technique like the Great Path Dharma form, which could increase his strength in all aspects. After leaving the cultivation courtyard, Ziyue quickly stepped onto the streets. As a cultivator, he could clearly sense that there was something unusual about the giant whale immortal city from the changes in the expressions of the surrounding cultivators. Something big seems to have happened recently. Ziyue was puzzled. His consciousness moved and spread out slightly. With his current immortal spell realm, it was already very easy for him to gather some information. Some small isolation formations were completely useless against his divine sense. Very quickly, a look of understanding flashed across his eyes. The 5 great sea demon clans have joined forces and are about to go to war with the giant whale immortal city. Old Hua City Lord has come out of seclusion and is urgently discussing countermeasures with various powerhouses. Azure Sea Sect, 10,000 Mystery Sect, Xiao Fengling, and other major immortal technique factions have all sent their elite powerhouses into the city. Middle Cloud Island Lord Wan Zhongyun has appeared in the immortal city. It seems that a mysterious primordial spirit realm powerhouse has also appeared. As the news gathered, Ziyue's eyes flashed with a strange look. After arriving in the giant whale immortal city, he naturally had some understanding of the strength of the powerhouses in the immortal city. There were 2 primordial spirit realm powerhouses in the giant whale immortal city. Other than Old Hua City Lord Hua Dingshan, the other was Middle Cloud Island Lord Wan Zhongyun. Wan Zhongyun's immortal technique realm was even higher than Old Hua City Lord Hua Dingshan's, having reached the mid-primordial spirit realm. It was only because Hua Dingshan possessed the giant whale immortal city's cornerstone treasure, the whale cleaving sword, that he was able to secure the position of City Lord. Otherwise, the position of City Lord would have changed hands 800 years ago. I just don't know who that mysterious primordial spirit realm powerhouse is, Ziyue muttered, a look of contemplation on his face. In the eyes of ordinary people, a storm was brewing in the giant whale immortal city, and a great battle was about to break out. Therefore, it was very normal for a mysterious powerhouse to arrive. However, he had a feeling in his heart. This mysterious powerhouse was very likely to be here for him. Immortal technique cultivators had sharp senses. Even if he couldn't be sure, he was 80% sure. It seems that someone has already arrived in the vicinity while I've been here, and is already in the giant whale immortal city. I just don't know if it's Confucian Wang Shuiji of the 9-star Tao Palace, or the powerhouses of the Celestial Spirit sect and the True Demon sect. Or could it be that the powerhouses of the 3 major forces have already arrived? Ziyue's eyes were cold. His aura changed, and he retracted his aura to the extreme, reaching a state where it seemed both real and illusory. For ordinary cultivators, even if they saw him, they would completely forget his appearance as long as they looked away. Even if they scanned with their divine sense, they would only feel that there was a person in the position he was occupying. However, they would not know who this person was or what was so special about him. It was very easy to overlook. Then, he took another step forward. Soon, the Great Tao Business Alliance appeared in front of him again. Within the Great Tao Business Alliance, Steward Zhao was already waiting for him at the door. He quickly welcomed him into a secret room. "Senior, these are the treasures you traded last time. They're all here. Please take a look and count them." Head Steward Zhao served the spirit tea and respectfully handed over a storage pouch. Ziyue reached out and took it. He scanned it with his consciousness. Indeed, in the storage bag, besides the map of the astral realm, there were all the materials needed to cultivate the Great Tao Dharma form. He immediately showed a satisfied look and nodded. "That's right. As expected of the Great Tao Business Alliance. Not only do you have sufficient materials, but the quality is also good. Senior, as long as you're satisfied." Steward Zhao's face immediately broke into a smile when he saw this. He seemed to be extremely happy. Chapter 717. Now that the deal is done, I shall take my leave. Bai Ziyue did not take it to heart and stood up as he spoke. "Senior, wait." Steward Zhao was slightly startled and hesitated. After a while, he continued, "Senior, have you heard about the sea demons attacking the city recently? The outside world is very noisy. Of course I have heard about it." Bai Ziyue furrowed his brows and said, "Senior, do you know that the sea demons are acting strangely because of a secret realm in the depths of the True Dragon Ravine, which is the center of the 5 great sea demons?" Steward Zhao asked. Due to the need to keep it a secret, he did not reveal that the secret realm was the Dragon Palace. "I have not heard of that." Ziyue shook his head. He had gathered a lot of information with his divine sense. However, information about the secret realm and the Dragon Palace was still a secret in the entire Giant Whale Immortal City. Only the top experts of the Giant Whale Immortal City, the cultivators above the Golden Core realm, knew about it. Naturally, he did not know. This may be a crisis for the entire Giant Whale Immortal City, but it's an opportunity for powerhouses like you, Senior. The secret realm is an opportunity. Even primordial spirit realm experts would go crazy over this opportunity. Due to the superior status of the Great Tao Business Alliance, the Giant Whale Immortal City revealed the news about the secret realm to us, giving us a chance to participate. Therefore, the Great Tao Business Alliance would like to invite you to participate in the planning of the treasures in the secret realm. Manager Zhao looked at Bai Ziyue and paused for a moment before continuing. Everyone knows that the Great Tao Business Alliance is very wealthy and generous when it comes to bestowing treasures. As long as you are willing to help, we will not disappoint you. What do you think? Explore the secret realm? Bai Ziyue mumbled to himself. He then shook his head and said, "Cultivator, I appreciate your kind intentions. However, I have important matters to attend to, so I can only say that it is a pity." Although he was very confident in his strength, he knew that it was not good for him to show too much in his current situation. Therefore, although he was curious about the mystic realm and knew that there must be a lot of good stuff in it since it could tempt the experts of the Great Tao Business Alliance, he didn't want to complicate matters. "If that's the case, I won't force you." Seeing this, Manager Zhao could only sigh regretfully. Then he casually said, "Recently, countless powerhouses have gathered near the Giant Whale Immortal City. Not only true MO fan of the Celestial Spirit sect, but even Confucian god Wang Shuiji of the 9-star Tao Palace was a guest on Cloud Island. That's right, it said that there are also demonic Tao experts secretly infiltrating. Therefore, I hope that fellow Taoist will be very careful when you travel. Thank you for telling me. Ziyue paused and gave the other party a deep look. Then, he turned around and left. Sir, why you want me to say this? After Ziyue left, Steward Zhao immediately entered a secret room at the side and said respectfully, Sir, I'm sorry. In this secret room sat a middle-aged cultivator. His figure was slightly plump, and his eyes seemed to be overlapping. It was actually a rare double pupil. Double pupil cultivators were rare in the immortal spell world and had a special bloodline. Once they cultivated and reached the god realm, it was very easy for them to awaken the divine eyes among their innate abilities. Their potential and strength were very shocking. Although this middle-aged cultivator's immortal spell realm was only in the late-stage golden core realm, his eyes carried a special light that made people not dare to look at him directly. He was very extraordinary. It's just a good karma. This person is no ordinary person. He was crowned king with the strength of an early-stage golden core realm, and he could go against the odds and kill immortals when he was in the mid-stage golden core realm. Now, he's only in the late-stage golden core realm, but he's probably a threat to many veteran primordial spirit realm powerhouses. His appearance made many old fellows in the business alliance uneasy. If he doesn't die within 100 years, he might be the next Sun Batong. The middle-aged cultivator smiled and said, Palace Lord Sun Batong? Head Steward Zhao was shocked. When Sun Batong was at the peak of the Golden Core realm, he really managed to kill an immortal. Compared to this North Nether King, he is slightly inferior. Of course, the current Sun Batong is very powerful. When he was at the mid-stage Primordial Soul realm, he was able to fight against the peak Primordial Soul realm Mountain Master. When he was at the late-stage Primordial Soul realm, he could compete with the 9 Great Extremities realm experts. Now that he has reached the peak Primordial Soul realm, it is said that he has the strength to fight against a mighty figure of the immortal Tao. This North Nether King is still far from reaching Sun Buodong's level. Not to mention, it was hard to say whether he would be able to survive this pursuit. Which of the 10 super forces is easy to deal with? If he really provokes them, the Extremities realm experts will personally take action. How can he be allowed to slowly grow? The middle-aged cultivator shook his head and smiled. That's true. How many geniuses are there in the immortal spell world? After countless years, there are still people who are more monstrous than him. But how many of them can truly reach the Primordial Soul realm and climb to the Extremities realm? Especially this North Nether King. He has too many enemies and is proud of himself. He is unwilling to condescend to a major force. If he had the protection of force, would it be so difficult? Supervisor Zhao could not help but nod. You think too much. The more he is protected by a major force, the faster he will die. None of the major forces would have seen the existence of such an extraordinary genius who has successfully reached the Primordial Soul realm. The 9-star Dao Palace and Qingxian Mountain have plenty of ways to kill such a genius. The middle-aged cultivator shook his head and said, I am only setting up a preemptive strike. What if he really grows? As he said that, he shook his head and laughed. Then, his figure turned illusory and disappeared on the spot. Obviously, Supervisor Zhao of the Great Dao Business Alliance, or the person behind him, has guessed my identity. Stepping out of the Great Dao Business Alliance, Ziyue's face showed a hint of uncertainty. This was definitely not good news for him. However, after thinking about it, he felt relieved. The Great Dao Business Alliance was one of the top immortal spell forces in the world. It was not hard to imagine that they would guess his identity through various signs. He would never underestimate the power of the 10 major immortal spell forces. Not to mention that they had actually come into contact with him. For what they told me about the 9-star Dao Palace's Wang Shuiji, the Celestial Spirit Sex MO fan, and the infiltration of Demon Dao experts, they should not have any ill intentions towards me. It seems like they are deliberately reminding me. Ziyue quickly came to this conclusion. He felt slightly relieved. If it was not necessary, he really did not want to provoke another major force. This was especially true for organizations like the Grand Dao Business Alliance, which was even more powerful than the 9-star Tao Palace. Chapter 718. Although the Grand Tao Business Alliance had a rather loose structure, at least in terms of cohesion, it was far inferior to Qing Xian Mountain and the 9-star Tao Palace. Compared to the Celestial Spirits sect and the Myriad Phenomenon sect, it was naturally inferior. Even so, the Grand Tao Business Alliance was still ranked in the top 3 of the top 10 super forces, firmly suppressing the 9-star Tao Palace, which was also ranked in the top 3. In the world of immortal spells, strength was king. But with great wealth, one could also become divine. However, the 9-star Tao Palace's Wang Shuiji, the Celestial Spirits sect's Mo Fan, and the True Demon sect have also sent experts here. It seems that during the time I was here, the 3 major forces used their own methods to roughly spy on my location and came here to pursue me. Ziyue pondered, a sense of urgency rising in his heart. Although his current strength was not weak, it would still be difficult for him to face Wang Shuiji of the 9-star Tao Palace, let alone True Venerate Mo Fan. Although he had never seen True Venerate Mo Fan before, he knew that True Venerate Mo Fan was no weaker than the Confucian god Wang Shuiji. In addition, he came from the Celestial Spirits sect, which had a deep foundation and might have some trump cards. As for the True Demon sect, even if he did not know who had come, he was sure that they were not weak. I have to go out to sea as soon as possible to hunt the sea demons. Only then can the quantity of my spiritual energy rapidly increase. Only then can I quickly raise my strength to the peak of the Golden Core realm and improve the 9-extinction Divine Sword and Tao Manifestation as quickly as possible. Only then will I have enough strength to face the upcoming challenges and resolve this crisis. Ziyue made up his mind and did not hesitate, nor did he need to pack anything. He directly headed out of the city. Perhaps because the giant whale immortal city was isolated overseas, one had to go out of the city gates to enter and exit. The forbidden space formation in the void was extremely strong, and even golden core cultivators would be suppressed and could only fly at low speeds. In order to not attract attention, Ziyue naturally went in and out of the city gates like most cultivators. There were city guards at the city gates, and almost at all times, there were god-level city guards guarding the city to prevent chaos. At the top of the city gates, there was a demon-revealing mirror. Under the illumination of the demon-revealing mirror, any demon that approached would emit a warning light. Ziyue approached the entrance of the city. Before he could step into the long path leading to the city gate, he suddenly felt several divine senses sweeping past him. At the same time, 3 deity realm cultivators released their divine senses to investigate. Almost every 10 breaths, a divine sense would sweep over. The frequency was extremely high, so strict. Ziyue's heart skipped a beat. He instinctively cast the shadow gravity field and concealed his aura, pretending to be a normal enlightened aperture realm cultivator. With his means, he naturally dodged it easily without being discovered at all. 1, 2, 3. After 3 waves of divine consciousness. After a period of 60 breaths, a divine sense that was a lot stronger than the previous 3 scanned the area once again. A golden core, true monarch. Was this the strength of the divine sense of a golden core, true monarch? Ziyue frowned slightly. If it was just to guard against the sea monsters, there would be no need for such tight security. The demon-revealing mirror and the divine sense of a deity realm cultivator were enough to eliminate most of the sea monsters below the Golden Core realm, and even the Golden Core realm. Could there be a primordial soul realm sea monster sneaking in? In the giant whale immortal city, no primordial soul realm sea monster would dare to take the risk, unless they were very powerful. Could it be? Is there another purpose behind all of this? Ziyue suddenly seemed to have thought of something. A cold light flashed in the depths of his eyes. Fortunately, his shadow gravity field had already reached the perfect realm. Unless a primordial soul realm cultivator was investigating in person, it would be impossible to see through him. Everything went smoothly. He walked out of the immortal city directly. Then, he withdrew his body and completely disappeared on the spot. A day later, Ziyue's figure appeared in a vast sea. There were no clouds for thousands of miles around. There were only a few islands around. At a glance, it was a sea of blue. According to the sea map, this should be the periphery of the giant whale clan's territory. It's the territory of the sea serpent clan, a subsidiary sea monster of the giant whale clan. Ziyue silently compared the sea map and immediately came to a conclusion. The sea serpent clan is considered a large clan among the many sea monsters. Although there is no primordial soul realm sea serpent king, there are 7 or 8 golden core realm sea monsters. The number of other clans is also very shocking. Let's try it out on them first. Although Ziyue was confident in fighting in the sea, he had to think more about it. After all, fighting in such an area was naturally disadvantageous to the human cultivators. On the other hand, those sea monsters could perfectly exert their strength. Thinking of this, he did not enter the sea immediately. Instead, he flipped his hand and took out a blue bead. It was the sea viewing bead. As soon as the sea viewing bead was taken out, a faint red light appeared. Obviously, there was a group of sea monsters gathering in the area ahead. There might be a god realm sea monster among them. Controlling the sea viewing bead to suspend around him, Ziyue took the opportunity to enter the sea. Boom! There was a splash of water. Ziyue opened the gravity shadow realm and forced the sea water to open naturally. It's quite easy, but the deeper I go, the greater the pressure in the sea. Ziyue thought in his heart and did not care. With his strength, even if he went thousands of miles deep under the sea, he could still maintain a certain combat strength. Then he spread out his divine sense and followed the direction of the sea viewing bead. Soon, he found a group of sea serpent demons patrolling the sea in the distance. Occasionally, when they saw fish swimming by, they would quickly rush up and devour them directly. There were more than 10 sea serpent demons in this group. Except for one who had reached the early stage of the God realm, the rest were equivalent to the middle stage of the Enlightenment realm. Each of them was 30 to 40 feet long. When they coiled together, they looked extremely ferocious. Ziyue quickly approached them. With a thought, a flying sword rushed out. Swoosh! The flying sword swam in the sea like a golden light, emitting an extremely cold sword chi. Puff! 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 The sea serpent demons, whether it was the early stage of the God realm or the middle stage of the Enlightenment realm, were all killed in an instant, even if they were hundreds of feet away from each other. The flying sword did not even really get close to them. Just a gust of sword chi's cold sword chi eliminated all their vital signs. This sword was the 9 extinction sword technique, which he had practiced for more than 10 days and had almost reached the beginner level. Although he had not officially reached the beginner level of the 9 extinction sword technique, with his strength, it was easy to deal with this group of sea serpent demons who were at most in the God realm. Chapter 719. The aura of the sword light alone was enough to annihilate the sea monsters below the gold core realm. Even the sea monsters in the early and middle stages of the gold core realm could hardly resist the sword of the 9 extinction holy sword. My soul energy has only increased by a few 100,000. Continue. Bai Ziyue's figure flashed, and he swiftly passed by these sea snake demons and continued forward. With the sea watching pearl, he could sense the sea monsters whose strength had reached the divine realm within dozens of miles around him. Then, he quickly approached and attacked with the 9 extinction holy sword. Once the 9 extinction holy sword was used, no matter how powerful the sea snake monsters were, no matter how large the sea snake monsters were, he only needed to use one sword move. He only needed one sword move. He killed all of them with one sword move. As time went by, Ziyue's figure gradually went deeper. He also gradually felt that the number and strength of the sea snake monsters he encountered had increased correspondingly compared to the beginning. Guessing that he might be close to the central area of the sea snake monsters, Ziyue did not stop at all. The 9 extinction holy sword was used one after another. The carefree and relaxed feeling, as well as the influence of the sword Qi in the sea, the obstacles and the influence of the sword Qi were all perceived by his divine consciousness. He also took this opportunity to search for the source and found his own shortcomings. Then he improved little by little. The nine-extinction holy sword was naturally much cruder than the Tao arts at the level of perfection. Ziyue's eyesight was very good, and it was constantly improving as he used it again and again. Soon. It won't take long. After a few more times, my nine-extinction holy sword will be at the entry level. Ziyue had a strong premonition, and he gradually became excited. Even if he used the nine-extinction holy sword, the consumption of his divine consciousness was much more than the ordinary divine consciousness. With the density of his purple extreme elixir essence, he could only use it 7 or 8 times in a row. But he did not care. Qi, another nine-extinction godly sword, was unleashed in the form of a stream of light. Puff, puff, puff. In front of him, dozens of sea snakes formed a battle formation and rushed toward him. The sea serpent demon in the lead was a sea serpent great demon that was obviously much larger in size. Its strength had reached the peak of the divine realm. There are dozens of deity realm sea serpents around them. However, in the face of Ziyue's resplendent sword, the combined strength of the group of demons was no weaker than that of a mid-golden core stage great demon. In the blink of an eye, their vitality was extinguished. Even their demonic bodies were torn apart by the incomparably sharp sword light. With a sizzling sound, they were all annihilated and turned into ashes. It's done. I've finally mastered the nine-extinction sword technique. Entering the nine-extinction divine sword means that the shackles that restricted my growth are gone. I can also use my soul power to improve this Taoist technique. Ziyue did not care about the results in front of him at all. Instead, he was ecstatic when he sensed that he had learned the basics of Tao techniques. He hurriedly looked at the attribute panel and saw the words Nine Extinction Sword Technique on the row of Tao techniques. My soul power has also increased from more than 60 million to 107 million now. Finally, it has broken through 100 million again. Immediately after, Ziyue also noticed the number of his soul power. Although the 100 million soul power could not directly improve his Tao technique, Nine Extinction Divine Light, to perfection, it could also improve his Nine Extinction Divine Sword technique from entry level to small success. However, after thinking about it, he did not directly improve it. 100 million points of soul power was not much to him at all. Even if he improved the Nine Extinction Divine Sword technique to small success, it would not improve his strength much. It was better to save his soul power for a rainy day. In the sea, in a huge karst cave, countless sea serpent demons were entrenched here. In the center of the karst cave, there was a huge sea serpent demon that was hundreds of feet long and dozens of feet thick. Every time it breathed, the seawater would surge violently, accompanied by intense toxins. The corrosive seawater and the walls of the karst cave became a wretched green. This sea serpent demon was the king of all the sea serpent demons, the sea serpent demon King Liu at the peak of the golden core stage. Not good, not good, not good. There is a human cultivator outside our snake palace who is wantonly slaughtering our tribe. Now half of our tribe has already died in his hands. Moreover, he is now rushing straight in the direction of our snake palace. Suddenly, a sea serpent demon quickly approached from afar and said in a panic, "A human cultivator? Are you sure there is only one person? How is his strength?" Demon King Liu suddenly opened his vertical eye and looked over coldly. When he met the Demon King's gaze, his heart trembled and he hurriedly said, "Yes, there is only one person. I don't know his exact strength, but he is at least at the early stage of the Golden Core stage. His sword technique is extraordinary, and no sea serpent demon can block his sword." How arrogant! My king, how about I go and meet him? Hearing this, a sea serpent demon with an extraordinary aura shouted angrily and said, This sea serpent demon king was a sea serpent demon whose strength had reached the mid-stage of the Golden Core stage. "Oh, Commander Lihi, with your strength, it is not difficult to deal with an early-stage golden core cultivator. Go! The sea serpent demon king did not mind and nodded casually. Therefore, the sea serpent demon king excitedly rushed out of the snake palace. Not long after, another sea serpent demon rushed over. My king, this is bad. Commander Lee, he is dead. He was killed by that human cultivator in one strike. What? The surrounding sea serpents were shocked. Some of them were even agitated. Immediately after, another sea serpent demon volunteered and rushed out, shouting, My king, I will meet him. This sea serpent demon was already at the late stage of the golden core stage. He was also the second king of the sea serpent demon tribe. With the advantage of a sea serpent demon's size and the fact that they were in the sea, he even dared to fight a peak golden core expert directly. Facing the great whale Immortal City's city, Lord Huafenyu, he was not afraid at all. Even if he could not defeat him, he could still exchange a few blows. All right, just to be safe, bring some other tribes to help. The sea serpent demon king nodded again. But soon, another sea serpent demon rushed over. Its voice was filled with panic as it stuttered. Great king, dead who? Who is dead? The sea serpent demon king suddenly stood up, and as he shook, huge waves rolled up in the sea. Second king is dead. He was killed by that human cultivator in one strike. More than 1,000 sea serpents are also dead. Only a few managed to escape. The sea serpent demon king panicked. What? The sea serpent demon king was shocked, and his vertical eyes widened to the extreme. He finally started to panic. Could it be that a nascent soul true cultivator has made his move? Chapter 720. The second king was a sea demon in the advanced stage of the Golden Core realm. He was as strong as a cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core realm. Together with thousands of sea demons in a battle formation, they could even fight against an emperor. To be able to kill all of them in such a short time, what else could he be but a primordial soul realm cultivator? However, the sea snake demon king was the king of a clan after all. His strength had already reached the peak of the Golden Core realm. Together with the great formation of the Snake Palace, even a primordial soul realm cultivator would find it difficult to break through in a short time. Therefore, although he was shocked, he did not panic. While desperately asking for help from the giant whale clan, he finally moved and rushed out of the Snake Palace. Then, in the next moment, he felt a shocking aura coming from outside the Snake Palace in a mighty manner. So fast, he subconsciously exclaimed. Only then did he see who it was. He was dressed in snow-white robes and had handsome features. He looked like a young cultivator. Although his aura was obscure, he did not deliberately hide it. What he revealed was that he was only in the advanced stage of the Golden Core realm. He really is not from the giant whale Immortal City. Moreover, he is only in the advanced stage of the Golden Core realm. He naturally knew about the many powerful cultivators in the giant whale Immortal City. Therefore, he quickly confirmed this. However, he was very shocked that the other party was only in the advanced stage of the Golden Core realm. Being able to kill the second king and many sea snake demons with the strength of an advanced stage of the Golden Core realm not only showed his strength, but also showed that his identity was not ordinary. Ordinary cultivators in the advanced stage of the Golden Core realm could not do this. Only the disciples of the top sex or even the super sex could do this. However, so what if you were a disciple of the super sex? You will not be able to escape death if you run into me, Liu. After confirming that the person was not a primordial soul realm cultivator, he relaxed. Then, a ferocious look appeared on his snake head. A fierce light flashed in his vertical eyes. Kill. Then, with a thought, a huge ray of green light was immediately emitted from the entire Snake Palace. Then, thousands of sea snake demons rose rapidly from all over the Snake Palace. As they converged, a wave of energy surged into the Snake Palace. In an instant, the entire Snake Palace seemed to have turned into a magic treasure. It was directly activated, forming a huge fortress in the sea. There was also a shocking aura emanating from it. This must be the legendary treasure of the sea serpents in Giant Whale City, the Snake Palace. Although it was only a supreme-grade Aurus core treasure, in the hands of the sea snake demon, it could unleash the power of an inferior-grade immortal soul treasure. If they are augmented by demon monarchs, even early-stage essence soul true cultivators would have a headache if they were to encounter them. Although Ziyue hadn't deliberately asked around in the Giant Whale Immortal City, he naturally had some understanding of the powerhouses and treasures of the various sea monster clans. However, it's not a big threat to me. Ziyue's heart was filled with confidence. With a thought, he took a deep breath and a flying sword turned into a stream of light, fiercely slashing out. Dao Technique, 9 Extinction Sword Technique. Chi. As a Dao Technique, the 9 Extinction Sword Technique's power was unfathomable. Ordinary cultivators, as long as they hadn't reached the Essence Soul realm, could see through the changes in the power of laws with their naked eyes. However, it would be difficult to figure out the trajectory of Ziyue's sword technique. With the augmentation of Ziyue's pure purple elixir energy, the speed of the flying sword was extremely fast. Although the 9 Extinction Sword Technique was only at the beginner level, it landed on the Snake Palace in an instant. Boom! Before Demon Monarch Liu could react, he felt the Snake Palace shake, and its power was rapidly depleted. This attack is so powerful. It's comparable to the full-strength attack of an advanced Aurus Core realm cultivator. Most importantly, the trajectory seems to have an inexplicable interference with the laws of heaven and earth. Even with my naked eyes, I can't detect it. It's as if it's not in this space at all. Dao Technique, this is definitely a supreme technique mastered by a cultivator. This human cultivator is indeed extraordinary. He actually mastered a Dao Technique. It's a pity that his Dao Technique is only at the beginner level. Although it's powerful, it's no threat to me. Although Demon Monarch Liu was not flustered, there was a flash of joy in his heart. He immediately activated the Snake Palace. Under the pouring of demonic power, a special silk thread shot towards Ziyue. This was an alternative use of the Snake Palace, the Snake Palace Golden Thread. The golden thread sliced towards him like a blade. At the same time, the numerous sea snake demons in the Snake Palace also launched their attacks. All of them rushed towards Ziyue. Ziyue's expression did not change. Lightning flashed on his body. He quickly dodged the attack. The perfected lightning escape light allowed Ziyue's speed to reach an unimaginable limit. Any expert at the Aurus Core realm would find it difficult to match him. Naturally, he easily dodged the attack of the Snake Palace. So fast, Demon Monarch Liu's eyes turned cold. He activated the Snake Palace again. Rumble. Streaks of resplendent green light expanded, rapidly enveloping the surrounding sea. Under the powerful pressure, Ziyue's speed immediately slowed down. However, even so, Ziyue's speed still surpassed countless Aurus Core realm experts and reached the half-step Essence Soul realm. Seeing this, Demon Monarch Liu hurriedly activated his domain power. The other sea snake demons at the Aurus Core realm also made their moves and spread their domain power. 5 to 6 Aurus Core realm sea snake demons activated their domain power at the same time. Especially since they came from the same source, their strength was extremely strong. Layers of seawater immediately seemed to have turned solid and pressed down on Ziyue desperately. In the seawater, there were waves of hidden forces that surged towards Ziyue like water blades. In this sea, the opponent's domain power is indeed very strong. Ziyue sensed this slight change. The gravity shadow domain involuntarily spread out. It directly excluded the hidden forces of the waves. With the strength of his domain power, even if the opponent's domain power was not weak, it could not affect him at all. However, it is obviously difficult to kill them as easily as before with my beginner level 9 Extinction Divine Sword. Ziyue once again used the lightning escape light. After dodging their attacks, he finally felt a little impatient. He raised his hand, and a special and bright divine light suddenly bloomed from his hand. This divine light was extremely beautiful. Like a glimmer of light in the eternal night, it emitted an endless demonic color. It was the Tao technique, primordial magnet divine light. The moment the divine light appeared, it quickly crushed. Chi. Layers of seawater rapidly disintegrated the moment they touched the divine light. It was as if they were evaporated, forming a huge hole. At the end of the hole was the treasure of the sea snake demons, the Snake Palace. Boom, boom, boom. The defensive barrier above the Snake Palace froze for a moment before shattering. The remaining power of the divine light did not decrease. It landed on the Snake Palace, the sea snake demon king above the Snake Palace, and the numerous sea snake demons. Chapter 721. Almost in an instant, the entire Snake Palace shattered, turning into pieces of magic treasures. The numerous sea snakes on the Snake Palace, as well as the sea snake demon King Liu, who had been looking down on the Snake Palace, were sliced by the divine light and turned into dust. They were all dead. The sea snake demon king at the peak of the Golden Core realm, 5 or 6 Golden Core realm sea demons, hundreds of God realm sea snake demons, and more than 10,000 Aperture Enlightening realm sea snake demons, all of them died in an instant. Even after death, the sea snake demon king's face still showed a trace of complacency, and a cold, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He had never expected that Ziwa, who was only at the late Golden Core realm and had only displayed the battle prowess of the late Golden Core realm, would be able to display such a terrifying power all of a sudden. The Sea Snake Demon King did not even have time to use any of his techniques or think before he died. I've heard rumors from the cultivators in the Great Whale Immortal City about how strong the Snake Palace is. I didn't expect it to be so weak. Ziwe was slightly taken aback when he saw the effect of the attack. However, after thinking about it, he felt that it was normal. When he was in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm, he already had the ability to go against the odds and defeat the Celestials. Now, after the battle in the Mirror Lake Secret Realm, his abilities had increased again and reached the advanced stage of the Golden Core realm. Naturally, his combat power had also increased tremendously. The power of the primordial magnetic divine light had also increased to the point where it could destroy everything. It's a pity that the Snake Palace and the treasures in it were destroyed. Ziwe still felt that it was a pity. Although the effect of the attack was ferocious, it was also too ferocious that it destroyed many treasures. There were not many treasures that could retain their spirituality after being scoured by his primordial magnetic divine light. However, because of this, my soul energy has finally increased by a large amount. It has reached 570 million points. Then, his gaze fell on his attribute panel, and his heart trembled slightly. He clearly remembered that before he'd entered the ocean from the giant whale Immortal City, his soul power had barely reached 63 million units. At this moment, his soul energy had soared to 570 million, which was an increase of more than 500 million. He was pleasantly surprised. Now that I think about it, although the Sea Snake Demon Clan is ferocious from the fact that they can contribute 500 million souls to me alone, they seem rather cute. Ziwe mocked in his heart. He soon calmed down and said softly, 570 million soul energy. Although it's not enough for my immortal arts to reach the peak of the Golden Core realm, it's enough for my 9 extinction godly sword to reach perfection. In a situation where his realm could not increase, the increase in the power of the 9 extinction divine sword could also greatly increase his strength. After all, in his expectations, the 9 extinction divine sword itself was an offensive Tao technique. When matched with the sword technique, its power was even greater than the magnetic divine light, which was also a Tao technique. Naturally, it would allow his attacking methods to increase by a large amount. Thinking of this, his heart skipped a beat. By spending 80 million soul energy, I can raise the 9 extinction divine sword from entry level to small success. As expected, The nine-extinction godly sword is much better than the metamagnet divine light in terms of both profundity and power. This can be seen from the fact that the metamagnet divine light only requires 60 million, while the nine-extinction godly sword requires 80 million for both Tao techniques to reach initial mastery. Ziyue's expression changed slightly, but there was a hint of joy in his heart. He knew that his previous guess was right. This nine-extinction god sword was indeed much more powerful than the origin magnetic divine light. Raise it. Then, without hesitation, he chose to raise it. Buzz. As his soul energy decreased, Ziyue immediately felt a large amount of cultivation experience and operating principles of the nine-extinction divine sword suddenly appear in his mind. It was as if the nine-extinction divine sword had become much simpler in his eyes at this moment. As for himself, it was as if he had gone through hundreds and thousands of years of tireless cultivation and directly cultivated the nine-extinction divine sword to small success. At this moment, with his current vision, the nine-extinction divine sword, which was originally extremely complicated, seemed to have become much simpler. Not only was the casting speed much faster than before, but even the power had increased by a large margin. Nine-extinction divine sword, small success. The power of this Tao technique should have increased by a large margin, at least not weaker than an emperor's attack. Ziyue silently compared. He was satisfied, but not satisfied. Continue. By spending 160 million soul energy, I can raise the nine-extinction divine sword from small success to large success. By spending 320 million soul energy, I can raise the nine-extinction divine sword from large success to complete. Raise it. Raise it. Ziyue chose to raise it one after another. Buzz. 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 Countless experiences regarding the cultivation of the nine-extinction godly sword, the operating principles, and the mysteries of Tao techniques flowed in his mind, and in his body. The Tao technique seed that belonged to the nine-extinction godly sword also changed, becoming solid and tough, and even more complicated and mysterious. It was as if in this short period of time, he had cultivated the nine-extinction divine sword for thousands of years and directly raised it to the complete realm. I wonder how powerful the nine-extinction divine sword is at the complete realm. Ziyue slowly opened his eyes, silently digesting the understanding of the nine-extinction divine sword in his mind, and could not help but feel curious. He knew that if he had the right to use the nine-extinction divine sword, the power would definitely be stronger than the primary magnetic divine light, which was also a Tao technique. However, he had no idea how much stronger it would be. Let's give it a try. With this thought in mind, he did not hesitate too much. With a wave of his hand, the North Sea flying sword had already rushed out like a bolt of lightning, and then it hovered at his fingertips. Then the Tao technique seed in his body rotated slightly, as if it had been pushed to the extreme. Suddenly, an inexplicable, mysterious light flashed, and in the midst of the turbulence, all of it poured into the flying sword. Chi! The flying sword rushed out. Fast, 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 fast to the extreme. It was difficult to see with one's eyes, difficult to detect with one's divine sense, difficult for Jindan realm cultivators to touch the trajectory of its operation, and extremely difficult for primordial spirit realm cultivators to react. The flying sword had already flashed, piercing into the depths of the sea, and piercing into the seabed rocks. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. It was as if there was no sound. But suddenly, under the sea, there was a sudden tremor. It was as if the underwater volcano that had been suppressed for thousands of years had erupted, as if the underground rocks that had been brewing for hundreds of millions of years had finally burst open with the movement of the bottom crust, and the seabed suddenly exploded. Endless waves surged, and hundreds of millions of tons of seawater, crashing and sweeping, squeezing and washing in all directions. The tyrannical pressure quickly radiated in all directions, and under the pressure, countless marine creatures were completely annihilated without a trace. Chapter 722. TSK, 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 Ziyue could not help but put up a defensive domain. He could clearly see that a sea serpent demon that was hiding in the distance sensed the change and rushed out. However, it was instantly crushed by the seawater and turned into minced meat. The power of this attack was too strong. It had reached the limit of what Ziyue could perform. Late-stage Essence Soul Realm, and it's at the pinnacle of the Essence Soul Realm. It's said that an attack at the pinnacle of the Essence Soul Realm has already reached the limit of what space can withstand. It can break the space membrane and shatter space for more than 3 breaths. My attack may not have reached the pinnacle of the Essence Soul Realm, but it's already close to that level. Late-stage Essence Soul Realm. Ziyue's gaze fell on the depths of the sea. As he guessed, a glint flashed across his eyes. He was already very satisfied with the strength of the attack. After all, he was only at the late-stage Golden Core Realm. However, the strength of the attack had reached the pinnacle of the late-stage Essence Soul Realm. It was definitely unprecedented. It's just that launching such an attack consumes a lot of energy. With just one strike, 40% of my purple extreme core energy had been consumed. In other words, under normal circumstances, once I use this 9 Extinction Legendary Sword, I can only make 2 attacks. After 2 attacks, 80% of my purple core energy will be consumed, and I can barely protect myself. Ziyue could not help but analyze, but he was not too concerned. After all, his situation was very different from that of ordinary cultivators. Even ordinary cultivators could recover their core energy in a short period of time with the help of some top-grade elixirs or treasures. However, because he had the attribute panel, as long as he had sufficient spiritual energy, he could recover infinitely and maintain an abundance of core energy. This shackle did not affect him much. Then, he looked at the attribute panel again. I still have 150 million spiritual energy left. My original spiritual energy should be 570 million. With the help of the attribute panel to upgrade the 9 Extinction Legendary Sword, I used up 460 million. I should have 110 million spiritual energy left. In the end, I still have 150 million soul energy left, which is an extra 40 million. Ziyue calculated, and a look of relief flashed across his eyes. That's right. Although my attack just now didn't really hit anything, it caused a huge impact. Under the crushing pressure of the seawater, countless sea creatures died as a result, which naturally produced a large amount of spiritual energy. If that's the case, wouldn't I be able to greatly increase my soul energy if I strike from a certain distance? As he thought this, he quickly shook his head. Doing so would result in too many unnecessary deaths. Compared to massacring the weak, he hoped that the ones that died in his hands were those monsters that had cultivated successfully. This was because those weak fishes were ignorant, and their lives were pure and kind. Demons, on the other hand, were naturally hostile to humans. It was very normal for both sides to kill each other. Naturally, he would not feel uncomfortable because of this. What happens next? Ziyue's thoughts flashed, and he quickly chose his next target. However, a sea snake demon was not enough to satisfy him. He was even less satisfied with the 150 million points of soul energy. Therefore, his figure moved, and lightning flashed on his body, and he quickly disappeared on the spot. Several hours later, Ziyue's figure appeared in a ruin. Under the ruins were the remains of the electric fish. The electric fish clan's individual strength is stronger than the sea snake clan's. However, for some reason, the electric fish clan's king and most of its clans are not in its nest. Therefore, the amount of soul energy increase for me is relatively small, only about 300 million. However, most of the treasures of the Electric Fish clan are well preserved and have been stored in my grotto heaven. Ziyue's face revealed a trace of contemplation. This was already the 3rd sea demon that he had slaughtered. However, except for the first sea snake demon, whose demon king stayed in the clan, the kings of the other 2 clans were not in the clan. It seems that what Manager Zhao of the Great Dao Business Alliance said about the joint exploration of the mystic realm by the 5 great sea demons is true. Most of the demon kings have been summoned to discuss the mystic realm. The thought flashed through Ziyue's mind, and he continued forward without stopping. Next, he would officially enter the territory of the Giant Whale clan. Giant Whale, Immortal City, City Lord's Mansion. Countless experts had gathered here. Not only were their auras deep as the abyss, but when their auras intersected, it caused the clouds in the void to roil and tremble as if they could not withstand it. At this moment, the person in charge of the City Lord's Mansion was no longer the Giant Whale Immortal City Lord Hua Fengyu, nor was it the Old City Lord Hua Dingshan. Instead, it was an elder who looked much older than Hua Dingshan. It was the most senior and strongest primordial spirit expert in the sea region tens of thousands of miles around the Giant Whale Immortal City, Fu Yunfan. Fu Yunfan was an expert from a small sect, but he had bravely advanced all the way to the advanced primordial spirit realm. It was clear that his talent, potential, and ability to comprehend were not weak. Of course, he was also very strong. However, because he did not like worldly affairs and preferred to follow the natural path, he had chosen to cultivate in seclusion on an immortal island 8,000 miles away from the Giant Whale Immortal City. Therefore, the position of City Lord of the Giant Whale Immortal City had fallen into the hands of Hua Dingshan and Hua Fengyu. Now, it was obvious that the news of the appearance of the Dragon Palace was too shocking, and the treasures inside must have attracted him. That was why he was attracted to this place. Apart from Fu Yunfan, who was at the advanced primordial spirit realm, there were also Mo Fan, who was at the intermediate primordial spirit realm, Wang Shuiji of the Nine-Star Dao Palace, Wan Zhongyun of Zhongyun Island, Hua Dingshan, who was at the peak of the early primordial spirit realm, Sidu Hai of the Azure Sea sect, and Su Liming of the 10,000 Mysteries sect. There were a total of 8 primordial spirit experts gathered together. As for the Golden Core Realm cultivators, there were even more. There were no less than 30 of them altogether. Let's go. The demon kings of the 5 major demon clans have all moved out. The day of the Dragon Palace's opening is just around the corner. Fu Yunfan bellowed as he looked at the other experts. Please, let's go. The group of cultivators responded, and then followed Fu Yunfan into the sky, quickly rushing out of the city. North Sea should be in this direction. They are actually close to where the 5 major demon clans are. Are they also here for the Dragon Palace? A group of cultivators in black robes floated above the sea. One of them seemed to have used a special deduction method as he spoke in surprise. Whether or not it is, we have to break into the Dragon Palace. If we can get a spiritual treasure, it will not be in vain for us to come all the way here. Another person said as a faint red light flashed in his eyes. Chapter 723. The spiritual treasure was a treasure above the primordial spirit treasure. Among the top 10 super forces, there were only a few forces that possessed immortal spells that were publicly recognized as possessing numinous treasures. But the Dragon Palace was a top clan in antiquity times, and there were no less than 3 spiritual treasures recorded in history. Even if some of them were lost over the years, there was a high possibility that the Dragon Palace had spiritual treasures. That was why so many experts in the primordial spirit realm had come together. It was only because Hua Dingshan and the others had purposely kept the news under wraps. Otherwise, once it spread, more experts would have come. Of course, even so, some top cultivators got the news. But because of the distance, it was difficult for them to get there in time. The Giant Whale clan is not only huge in size, but also very strong individually. The weakest adult Giant Whale clan member is in the Divine Realm. Even if they are in the early stage of the Divine Realm, their strength is comparable to that of a cultivator in the late stage of the Divine Realm. If the Giant Whale demon at the peak of the Divine Realm is in the sea area, it is not afraid to face a cultivator in the early stage of the Golden Core Realm. The information about the Giant Whale demon flashed in Ziyue's mind. He had to admit that some clans were really unique in terms of racial talent. This was the Giant Whale clan. Among the 5 sea demons, the Black Flood Dragon clan and the Bone Ra clan were recognized as the most talented. The Black Flood Dragon clan claimed to have the bloodline of the real dragon. In the same realm, their individual strength was stronger than that of the Giant Whale. As for the Bone Ra clan, it was a clan that was slightly smaller than the giant whale, but its body was stronger than many other clans. A bone rock at the peak of the god realm, even in the void, had the strength to match an ordinary human practitioner who had just entered the gold core realm. In the sea area, it was not impossible for them to kill an ordinary human cultivator in the early stage of the golden core realm. The racial gap is actually similar to the gap between the geniuses in the cultivation world. For example, among the human cultivators, those who have condensed the lower 3 grades of the golden core are the weakest. Those who can condense the middle 3 grades of the golden core are naturally stronger than those who have condensed the lower 3 grades of the golden core in the same realm. Cultivators who had condensed a top-grade golden core were considered top-notch in terms of talent, potential, and resources. In fact, they were equivalent to the giant whale clan, the black flood dragon clan, and the bone kraken clan among the sea monsters. They are not weaker than those sea demons in the same realm. Moreover, because they had many magical treasures and abilities to defend themselves, they often had the upper hand. Of course, the divine beasts of the demon clan, the divine beasts, such as the real dragons, phoenixes, and Kylan in the same realm, only geniuses in the same realm. Bai Ziyue was very clear about this. Geniuses were just like the racial talents of the demon race. The difference in bloodline was huge. For example, Bai Ziyue's battle prowess was measured by the standard of an ordinary primordial soul realm true cultivator. However, among the primordial soul realm experts, there were also experts like Bai Ziyue who possessed the ability to fight across realms. When he was at the peak of the golden core realm, Sun Badong had the ability to defeat immortals and kill early primordial soul realm cultivators. When he was at the middle primordial soul realm, he could match peak primordial soul realm cultivators. When he was at the late primordial soul realm, he could compete with the 9 great hopeless realm cultivators and become the 10th great hopeless realm cultivator. Of course, Ziyue was not arrogant, but he would not belittle himself either. This was because the advantage that the attribute panel gave him was too great. Ordinary purple core realm cultivators might be able to match divine beasts in the same realm. But those purple core realm cultivators only had a little purple in their golden core and were only at the beginner realm. Compared to his golden core realm, which had the perfect purple core, there was a huge gap. In other words, he could defeat divine beasts in the same realm, unless they were from some heaven-defying races. And those great magic treasures and even Dao techniques that had reached the perfection stage allowed him to expand his advantage to the maximum. It was very easy for him to defeat divine beasts and purple core realm cultivators in the same realm. This was also the reason why he could defeat early primordial soul realm and middle primordial soul realm cultivators, even though he was only at the late golden core realm. After entering the territory of the giant whale clan, the first thing that Ziyue encountered was not the great demons of the giant whale clan, but the many affiliated sea demons. They were like rows of soldiers patrolling nearby, guarding against the invasion of human cultivators and other sea demon clans. Ziyue was not very interested in these low-level sea demons, especially since they were scattered all over the place. Therefore, he used the gravity shadow domain and swept over silently. Any sea demon, even if they were in the sea, would not be able to detect him. Moreover, as he gradually went deeper, he was clearly able to sense that the resources here were much more abundant than the outer area. There were various sea creatures that possessed intelligence, and there were even numerous treasures of the heavens and the earth. Ordinary cultivators would go wild with joy upon seeing them and take them to be treasures. But here, they were scattered all over the place and were even despised by many sea demons. Ahead should be one of the strongholds of the giant whale clan. The number and strength of the sea demons are obviously much stronger than those in the outer regions. Ziyue looked at the ocean-watching pearl that was floating around him and judged the number and strength of the sea demons inside based on the intensity of the red light. Then, he quickly flew into the stronghold. Almost immediately, he saw at least 100 different kinds of sea demons and a huge behemoth that was as big as a mountain. A giant whale? It was a giant whale. It was at least 70 feet tall and more than 60 feet long. When it opened its eyes, they were like two huge doors and windows, reflecting cold light. Its huge mouth was big enough to swallow a house when it opened and closed. Its body seemed to have a natural, intimidating aura, causing the surrounding sea monsters to be very careful and tremble with fear. A human cultivator? Suddenly, it seemed to have sensed something. Its mouth opened and closed, and a strong mental fluctuation spread out. Roar! You are courting death. Kill! In an instant, its body shook violently, and the sea water swayed. Then, it rushed toward Zul like an arrow. Sea demons, especially those of the giant whale clan and the bone-cracking clan, would instinctively rush to kill human cultivators as soon as they encountered them. Seeing this, the other sea demons dared not hesitate and rushed toward Zul. Middle stage god realm? Zul sensed the strength of the giant whale clan's aura, and a trace of disappointment flashed in his eyes. But as the first giant whale clan he met, he naturally had to show some respect. So he suddenly exerted his gravity shadow domain to the extreme. Boom! 500 times the gravity instantly fell. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Almost in an instant, the aggressive sea demons were all stunned. Then, as if they had been hit by a horrible force, they quickly fell toward the bottom of the sea. Chapter 724. Some of the weaker sea demons, even if their physical bodies were far more powerful than that of human cultivators, were unable to withstand the pressure of 500 times the gravity. Puff, puff, puff. Sounds of internal organs being crushed and bodies being torn apart could be heard. Their flesh and blood being crushed into meat paste could be heard. In an instant, hundreds of sea demons, except for a few sea demons at the divine realm, were all killed. However, even though these sea demons at the deity realm managed to withstand the sudden gravitational force and didn't die directly, they were still severely injured under the effect of the gravitational force. They were all limp and weak, and it was difficult for them to even move a little. Human gold core? He is a human golden core cultivator. Quick, send out the distress signal. The remaining sea demons roared and sent out distress signals. They were also struggling with all their might. However, it was all useless. Every time they resisted fiercely, they could feel their bodies being torn apart, as if they were about to be separated from their bones. Roar! Right at this moment, the great whale monster let out a furious roar. Under the influence of its ferocious strength, its massive tail slammed into the seabed. Boom! Then, it quickly fled into the distance as if it had entered the sword light. He was too strong. In its opinion, Ziyue's strength was simply not something that an ordinary Golden Core Realm cultivator could compare to. Just by revealing his domain technique, he was able to make it lose the ability to resist. In its opinion, he was even more frightening than their Monster King. That was why it summoned its last bit of demonic power and used all of its strength to fly out with the terrifying power it had bestowed upon it by its enormous physical body. This power is not weak at all. Unfortunately, you won't be able to escape. Ziyue was slightly surprised. With the strength of his gravity shadow domain, even a gold core realm cultivator would not be able to break free from it in a short time, let alone a sea demon at the deity realm. From this, one could see how terrifyingly powerful this giant whale monster was, as expected of someone who could condense a third gray golden core. Then, he stretched out his hand, and a speck of starlight appeared. It was the great divine ability, Star-Shattering Finger. He had obtained the Star-Shattering Finger from Dream Immortal Monarch's younger brother, Li Mengchen. Even though he didn't intentionally cultivate it, with his current understanding of the grand Tao of the heavens and the earth, the speed of his cultivation was extremely swift. Presently, he'd already grasped the basics, and a casual strike of his was absolutely not inferior to the full force strike of an ordinary cultivator at the middle or late stage of the Golden Core realm. Therefore, the giant whale monster, which had only rushed out for a few dozen miles, was pierced through from the front to the back. Then its body trembled, and it quickly lost its strength and fell down. He had fallen. With a wave of his hand, Ziyue collected the corpses of the sea monsters and put them into his grotto heaven. He did not stop and continue to go deeper. He didn't come here to look for trouble with the giant whale clan. Instead, he simply wanted to hunt sea monsters and obtain their spiritual energy. So, he didn't intentionally conceal his aura and figure, and he seemed to be slightly unbridled as he moved forward. It was all for the sake of attracting more oceanic race monsters. To him, the greater the number and the greater the strength of the sea race monsters, the more soul energy and cultivation resources he would have. What's going on with the human cultivator outside? As far as I know, he's already completely exterminated 3 oceanic demon clans. I'm the only one who's still blocking the news. If the sea snake demon clan's Li Xing, the swordfish clan's demon king, and the lightning fish clan's demon king knew about the situation of their clans, they wouldn't have put in so much effort to explore the true dragon ravine for us. And now, he actually dares to step into the territory of our giant whale clan. Within the giant whale palace, a sea monster that was only twice as tall as a human cultivator, but had the appearance of a giant whale, glared with a pair of bell-like eyes and roared angrily. This was a unique ability of the oceanic race. Only those who had cultivated to the golden core realm would have this ability. Transformation. Even if it was an incomplete transformation, it could still allow them to greatly shrink their body and transform into the body of a human. At this moment, there were at least 10 giant whales roaring like this sea monster in the giant whale palace. In other words, there were at least 10 oceanic demon clans, equivalent to the golden core realm gathered here. And in response to the whale Jade Crown Prince. Based on the information we currently have, we don't know much about this human cultivator. All we know is that he doesn't hail from any of the major factions in the giant whale immortal city, but seems to have appeared out of nowhere. His strength and methods are extremely strong. Judging from the complete extermination of the Sea Snake clan and the death of Demon King Liudu, his strength is at least on par with a half-step nascent spirit realm cultivator, even if he hasn't reached the nascent spirit realm. If he's allowed to barge into our giant whale palace as he pleases, we wouldn't have to worry about him under normal circumstances. There's no need for the king to do anything. Our commanders are more than enough to kill and devour him for a sumptuous meal. However, more than half of our giant whale clan's experts have already gone to the true dragon ravine. Our strength has been greatly reduced, and even if we can take care of him, we'll definitely suffer heavy losses. Therefore, we have to be on our guard against the whale Jade Prince. Down below, a seemingly thin whale, great demon with a wisp of intelligence in its eyes, instructed in a low, muffled voice. Also, we've just received news. The giant whale immortal city seems to have long known about the true dragon ravine, and a large number of experts are already rushing in its direction. If our battle with this human cultivator attracts the attention of those experts, and they learn about our current situation, we'll be in a very bad situation. You must know that this group of experts is definitely the elite of the human cultivators. There are no less than 5 of them who are at the primordial soul realm, and there are also dozens of golden core experts gathered together. Even our giant whale clan would find it difficult to resist their combined strength. If possible, I'm sure they wouldn't mind staying for a while and taking care of us while they're at it. Another giant whale demon stepped forward and tried to dissuade the whale Jade Prince. Then are we going to tolerate his impudence in our giant whale clan's territory? The whale Jade Prince roared. Of course not. However, we can lure him in another direction. The giant whale demon at the front spoke up. Where? The true dragon ravine. The true dragon ravine is home to many experts of the 5 major sea demon clans, including 5 grand monster kings and dozens of minor monster kings. Once the human cultivator enters, he's almost certain to die. As the giant whale demon spoke, a cold glint flashed in his huge dead fish eyes. Very well, then we'll leave this matter to Elder Whale Pang. You must lure him into the true dragon ravine and borrow the power of a grand monster king to kill him. The whale Jade Prince shouted and took advantage of the situation. Instantly, a look of extreme shock and panic appeared on the giant whale's face. Chapter 725. Half an hour has passed, and I've only killed 7 great whale demons. None of them have reached the golden elixir realm. The strongest one is only at the peak of the god realm. Zuf frowned. He had thought that he would be able to obtain more soul energy in the territory of the great whale clan. After all, the sea demons here were much more powerful than the other sea demon clans in terms of both numbers and strength. In fact, he was right. However, because the giant whale clan's sphere of influence was a little too vast, they were relatively scattered. Although he had killed a lot of sea demons, his actual efficiency was far lower than before. Among these sea demons, there were only 7 that truly belonged to the giant whale clan. The great whale clan has strong racial talents, but they are relatively few in number. However, as far as I know, the great whale clan has at least 1,000 members after a long period of reproduction. Zue muttered to himself as he continued to move forward. He was not in a hurry. This was because he could clearly sense that the deeper he went, the sea demons he encountered were much more powerful than before, both in terms of numbers and strength. Therefore, although he did not know where the great whale clan's real nest was, he could roughly guess the direction. Of course, even if he was very confident in his own strength, he also knew that the great whale clan was not weak since they could dominate such a huge sea. Not to mention that he would be facing the power of an entire clan. The strongest demon king of the sea snake demon clan was only comparable to the emperor realm, but when the entire clan attacked, it could match a true cultivator at the early stage of the primordial soul realm. The great whale clan had a demon king at the primordial soul realm. When the entire clan attacked, even a cultivator at the late stage of the primordial soul realm would not be able to do anything. Naturally, he would not underestimate them. He also maintained sufficient vigilance and maintained his state at all times. He used the shadow gravity domain, the heaven patching technique, the god realm physique, and other techniques to ensure that he could attack at any time and make his strongest attack or escape with his escape technique. As he moved forward again, he suddenly felt that the game area was strange. This time, it was surprisingly smooth. He did not encounter much resistance. It was as if the great whale clan did not notice that he had killed many sea demons earlier. He hadn't encountered a large group of sea demons for more than 10 minutes. Because of this, his soul energy remained at the level of 670 million and did not increase at all. In fact, because he occasionally used soul energy to recover his Jindan essence, his soul energy continued to decrease. Did I go the wrong way? Or had the giant whale clan received the news in advance and gone into hiding? That's not good, Zua muttered. His divine sense spread out and his speed increased. Because he wasn't in a hurry before, and because he was in the middle of the sea, his speed wasn't very fast. But now that he noticed the abnormality, he naturally became more vigilant. They found the sea demon. Zua was pleasantly surprised. Judging from the red light on the ocean-watching pearl in his hand, there weren't many sea demons, and they weren't very strong. But it was also the first batch that he noticed in half an hour. 2 spirit turtles? Spirit turtle clan? No, it's just an ordinary sea turtle. Zua quickly approached, and his divine sense swept out silently. Soon, he made a discovery. In fact, although most turtle-type sea demons belong to the spirit turtle clan, the endless sea domain was too big, and there were many turtle-type sea demons. These turtle-type sea demons were green in color and had green fur growing on their shells. Because there were so many of them, there were some in every sea demon clan. Quick, let's go. The Dragon Palace is about to open. We have to get to the true Dragon Gully as soon as possible. I didn't expect the news of the Dragon Palace and the true Dragon Gully to be true. It said that the 5 major sea demon clans and countless sea demon clans have received the news and are all heading to the true Dragon Gully. We have to leave quickly. Yes, we have to leave quickly. If we can enter the Dragon Palace, it's the lair of the true dragon. There are countless treasures and even legendary numinous treasures. There are also various sea demon legacies. One of them is the sea demon legacy of our spirit turtle clan. That's a legacy that can reach the pinnacle of the essence spirit realm. If we have the chance to obtain it, It's not impossible for us to enter Spirit Turtle Island and become the next Spirit Turtle Demon King. The two green-furred turtles discussed excitedly, their psyche rippling intensely. He even revealed his demonic body, quickly moving through the sea at an extremely fast speed. Dragon Palace? There's a Dragon Palace in the True Dragon Gully? Ziyue's heart jolted as he suddenly recalled the invitation from Steward Zhao of the Great Dao Business Alliance in the Great Whale Immortal City. Back then, he only said that a mystic realm was about to appear in the True Dragon Gully and invited him to participate. He didn't explain in detail what the mystic realm was about. He didn't expect it to be the legendary True Dragon Lair, the Dragon Palace. The True Dragon Clan is a true divine beast clan. In ancient times, they dominated an entire generation and were a true pinnacle clan. Every true dragon divine beast would have the strength of the essence spirit realm when they reached adulthood. If they were talented and had the opportunity to work hard, it would be much easier for them to advance to the level of a mighty figure of the immortal Tao compared to other clans and human cultivators. The Dragon Palace of the True Dragon Lair was the residence of such a pinnacle clan. It was also where they stored their treasures. Not only were there precious treasures and natural treasures, but there were also the legacies of various sea demons. As the two sea turtles said, the spirit turtle legacies that could reach the pinnacle of the essence spirit realm were very likely to exist in the Dragon Palace. That's because the True Dragon Clan was a supreme existence that ruled the seas in ancient times. Every living thing in the seas submitted to the True Dragon Clan and would leave their legacies in the Dragon Palace as witnesses. It's very normal. Ziyue's heart jolted as his mind churned. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant. Most importantly, there's a high chance that there's a numinous treasure in the Dragon Palace. According to the ancient records, the number of numinous treasures that the True Dragon Clan possessed in ancient times was more than 3. There's obviously more that we don't know about. Even with Ziyue's excellent temperament, he couldn't help but have some strange thoughts at this moment. However, he quickly calmed down. He quickly realized that something was wrong. If the Dragon Palace really existed, even if the news spread and all the sea demons knew about it, the Demon King experts of the 5 major sea demon clans would definitely not allow the other sea demons to get their hands on it so easily and allow them to step into it dauntlessly. From the tone of the two great spirit turtles, it seemed that they would definitely be able to step into the Dragon Palace as long as they entered the True Dragon Ravine. This made him feel very strange. There must be something fishy about this. Ziyue muttered. He was just about to approach and interrogate when his figure suddenly stopped, and he couldn't help but reveal a trace of a strange expression. Chapter 726. Quick, let's go. The Dragon Palace is about to open. We have to get to the True Dragon Gully as soon as possible. I didn't expect the news about the Dragon Palace to be true. It said that the 5 great sea demon clans and countless sea demon clans have received the news and are all heading to the True Dragon Gully. It had only been 10 breaths since he heard the voices of the 2 spiritual turtles. However, the 2 spirit turtles opened their mouths again. They emitted powerful spiritual ripples and repeated what they had said before. Now, things are getting interesting. Under what circumstances would the 2 spiritual turtles keep saying the same thing? It seems that the giant whale clan has noticed my presence. They have other plans and want to lure me into the True Dragon Gully. I don't know if there's a dragon palace in the True Dragon Gully or not, but it's definitely extremely dangerous. Ziyue's eyes flashed with understanding. Then, he felt a little angry. They want me to die. Most importantly, how much do they look down on my intelligence to come up with such a scheme? Do they think that I'll be lured so easily? However, I have to admit that if the news about the Dragon Palace is true, then even if they know it's a trap, there will still be a lot of cultivators coming. As Ziyue thought to himself, he suddenly sped up and approached the 2 spiritual turtles in an instant. He restrained them in an instant, then reached out and used the Demon Dao secret technique to search their souls. After 2 consecutive soul searches, the memories of the two spiritual turtles were extracted and viewed, and he obtained the information he wanted. The news about the Dragon Palace is true. At this moment, almost all the higher-ups of the 5 great sea demon clans have gathered in the true Dragon Gully and are ready to explore the Dragon Palace. That's why the 2 spiritual turtles were ordered by Elder Whalepang of the Giant Crab Clan to lure me into the true Dragon Gully, so that the many powerful sea demon clans in the true Dragon Gully can attack me. In addition to these 2 spiritual turtles, there are at least dozens of waves of sea demons in the nearby sea area that have been ordered to lure me. Zue silently digested the information he got from the 2 spiritual turtles. The 2 spirit turtles were easily dealt with. Then, he turned around and headed in another direction. You dare to scheme against me? Then you will have to bear the consequences of scheming against me. Die. Not only will Jing Peng die, but the giant whale clan behind him will also have to pay the price. Ziyue's expression hardened. Ziyue, hated being schemed against the most. From the ancient barren domain to the current firmament territory, from a mortal to a famous cultivator, none of the cultivators who had schemed against him had survived until now. Kill. Soon, he encountered another wave of sea demons. The strength and numbers of the sea demons were greater than that of the spirit turtles. Before they even got close, Ziyue could already hear the intense spiritual waves of the sea demons. They were also talking about the Dragon Palace, trying to lure Ziyue to the real Dragon Gully. Ziyue's eyes turned cold. He didn't hesitate to use his shadow gravity domain. Then, he used his divine light of annihilation to deal with these sea demons. What's going on? Oh no, we've been discovered. Dozens of miles away from Ziyue, there was a huge underground Karst cave. This Karst cave was actually a gathering point of the Giant Whale clan. At this time, the elder of the Giant Whale clan, Jing Peng, was guarding this Karst cave. In addition to Jing Peng, there were 4 or 5 giant whale demons in the Gold Core realm. There were also hundreds of giant whales as large as mountains. Through a special conch, they could monitor the changes in the environment within 100 miles. When they noticed that Ziyue had killed 2 waves of sea demons and was rushing toward them aggressively, all the Giant Whale clan members were shocked. They immediately realized that their plan had failed. The other party had noticed their scheme and was heading in their direction. In that case, then we can only fight. I like to see if the strength of this human cultivator is really that strong. Elder Jingpeng's eyes turned cold as he released the aura from his body. He no longer cared about hiding his aura. His figure changed and immediately expanded from a height of 10 feet to that of a giant mountain. It was the true form of the Giant Whale clan. Whether it was sea demons or monsters, after breaking through to the Gold Core realm, they would automatically awaken the ability to transform. They could shrink their body size and change their appearance so that they could take the appearance of a human. At least, they could walk in the outside world with the appearance of a human. Moreover, they could maintain a strong battle strength. However, no matter what kind of giant demon they were, their strongest battle strength would always be when they revealed their true form. Elder Jingpeng was ranked in the top 10 among the many experts of the Giant Whale clan. He had reached the peak of the Gold Core realm long ago and was not weaker than the sea snake demon king Liu. After revealing his true form, his strength soared, and his battle strength in the sea was comparable to that of a half-step primordial soul realm expert. He knew that, Bai Ziyue had the battle record of killing conferred King Liu and was extremely powerful. However, he did not think that Ziyue was really invincible and could defeat immortals and be comparable to a primordial soul realm expert. Especially in the sea demon clan had a great advantage. The strength of a half-step primordial soul realm expert was enough. Not to mention, he was not a demon. Rumble. The other giant whale monsters all moved out. The 4 Golden Core stage giant whale monsters all revealed their true forms, transforming into mountain-like behemoths. In total, there were more than 100 giant whales moving together. Disregarding everything else, their aura alone was unparalleled. As their bodies moved, the vibrations of the sea water surged and shattered. It was as if they wanted to change from pure water to another structure. It's indeed nearby. With the concealment of the array formation and the karst cave, it would be easy to miss it if one did not deliberately investigate. Ziyue instantly felt the change in the aura in the distance. He swept his gaze, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. It didn't take long for more than 100 giant whale demons to appear. As they swam through the water, they seemed to blot out the sky and cover the earth, as if they were going to cover the entire surface of the sea. Although there were not many of them, their bodies were too large and long. In addition, their auras were connected and vaguely formed an array. Immediately, a majestic aura swept up as if a huge army of tens of thousands was about to charge. In particular, that coldness, that murderous intent, that madness. It was enough to move anyone who saw it. Very good. It's better to show yourself than to let me find you. It's straightforward and won't waste time. A look of admiration appeared in Ziyue's eyes. Chapter 727. What he admired the most was how all of these giant whales had rushed out to fight him head-on when they were facing him. In this way, he would not have to spend so much effort to deal with them. After all, killing them all at once was much easier than splitting them up and killing them one by one. Therefore, Ziyue did not hesitate to charge forward. Dying. Then, just as the two sides were about to collide and were only 10 miles apart, Ziyue roared and made his move. He stretched out his hand and pointed, and the Tao technique seed that belonged to the 9 extinction godly sword in his body suddenly lit up. The power of the Jindan in his body was quickly consumed, and a special power was layered on top of each other, acting on the flying sword in front of him. All of it poured into it and evolved into an endless power. Buzz! The flying sword shot out. The sword light had already rushed out and pierced through the space vaguely. It had already disappeared before Ziyue's eyes, but a large space ripple could be seen with the naked eye. There was even a faint black radioactive substance emitted from the ripple. This sword strike almost broke through the spatial barrier. It had definitely reached the first level of the late-stage primordial spirit realm. He was only one step away from being able to break through the barriers of space and pierce through space. Kill! More than 100 giant whale demons roared. They formed a battle formation, and their auras were connected. It was as if they were one. Their terrifying physical strength was superimposed with the power of their demon chi. They were really like peerless, ferocious beasts that were charging forward with the power to devour the world. Elder Whale Pang, who was in the lead, did not dodge. A golden light bloomed from his body. With the support of so many demon clans, it was much easier for him to use all kinds of techniques compared to when he was alone. It also made his battle strength soar infinitely. At this moment, he even had the courage to fight with a true primordial spirit realm expert. Boom! Then, Ziyue's flying sword pierced through and landed directly on the golden light in front of Elder Pang Jing. It pierced through it easily like a sharp blade piercing through paper. It then quickly pierced into Elder Whale Pang's head from top to bottom and deeply into his body. At the same time, the flying sword suddenly burst out with extremely sharp and terrifying sword chi. As the sword chi crisscrossed, endless terrifying sword chi filled the air and rushed out in all directions. Bang! Elder Jing Pang's enormous body was almost instantly sliced into sieves and minced meat. The giant whales were immediately enveloped by the sword chi. Puff! 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 Above the sword chi, there was a shocking sword chi. The sword chi was actually transformed from the 9 extinction godly termination that Ziyue had absorbed when he was cultivating the 9 extinction godly sword. The perfect 9 extinction godly aura was many times more powerful than when he had first cultivated it. Even if Ziyue had absorbed too much 9 extinction holy aura when he was cultivating back then, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. His soul and body would suffer great damage and impact. The 9 extinction holy aura at complete realm was naturally more terrifying. Just a trace of it was enough to severely injure and kill a golden core cultivator. As these beams of sword energy fell, the murderous aura surged, and the murderous aura that landed on the bodies of those giant whale monsters was more than a little bit. All of a sudden, all of the giant whale monsters, regardless of whether they were in the god realm or the 5 gold core realm like the giant whale, regardless of how strong they were or how powerful their bloodline talents were all killed at this moment. They were dead. Boom, boom, boom. Hundreds of giant whale monsters' bodies fell, and the heavy sound of their bodies made the bottom of the sea roar. Endless amounts of blood drifted along with the seawater, dyeing the area within a radius of several dozen kilometers red. Using the 9 extinction godly sword to kill this group of giant whale monsters is a little overkill. Ziwa looked at the scene in front of him and shook his head. As he flew, the endless red sea water swept up and poured into his north underworld cave. Along with the seawater, the corpses of over 100 enormous great whale demons were also swept up. The giant whale clan had a huge body and a strong body. However, their skin was so tough that even an aperture in lightning realm cultivator would not be able to pierce through it. Their bones and monster cores were even more precious. Even their flesh and blood contained a large amount of energy essence. Although he could not use it, the North Underworld sect disciples in the cave could use the large amount of flesh and blood essence to greatly improve their strength. After all, the flesh and blood of a golden core realm demon was definitely good stuff for low-level cultivators. If he had such an opportunity when he was still weak, his growth would have been much faster. Next, it's the nest of the giant whale clan, the giant whale palace. Ziwa had already obtained a lot of information about the giant whale clan through the soul search. Although he did not know everything. After all, some low-level sea demons did not know much about the giant whale clan. However, it was not difficult to know the location of their nest. Ziwa's body flashed with lightning, and he quickly disappeared. Not good, not good. I just received news that Elder Whale Pang, in the giant whale clan's encampment. A panicked voice suddenly rang out in the giant whale palace. As the voice rang out, a panicked figure of a fish rushed into the main hall. What happened to him? Whale Jade Crown Prince, who had been anxiously waiting in the palace, trembled and asked in a low voice. He died in battle. Elder Whale Pang led more than 100 clansmen in a fierce battle against that human cultivator. However, even if they joined forces, they were still no match for that human cultivator, and all of them died in battle. The voice of the swimming fish demon suddenly weakened, as if it was extremely terrified. I just confirmed that the soul lamps of Elder Whale Pang and the others have all been extinguished. At this moment, another voice rang out. What? Whale Jade Crown Prince's voice suddenly rose as he said in disbelief. That human cultivator's strength is really that terrifying. He was well aware of Elder Whale Pang's strength. Although they were not on good terms, Elder Whale Pang was definitely stronger than him. Even if he was only at the late Golden Core stage while Elder Whale Pang was at the peak of the Golden Core stage, Elder Whale Pang had still died at the hands of that human cultivator. In other words, if he had encountered that human cultivator, he would have died without a doubt. One had to know that with Elder Whale Pang's strength and the joint forces of the giant whale clan, even an early primordial spirit realm expert would have to expend a great deal of effort to kill them. Could that human cultivator really have the battle prowess of a primordial spirit realm expert? He panicked at once. Currently, the giant whale immortal palace's strength was very weak. All of its high-level battle prowess had rushed into the true dragon ravine, leaving only him and Elder Whale Pang to guard it. Now that Elder Whale Pang had fallen, even with the great formation and secret treasures of the giant whale immortal palace, he did not have much confidence in confidence. Chapter 728. He's here. The human cultivator is here. Just as the Whale Jade Crown Prince was panicking, a series of terrified voices rang out. What do we do? Ask for help. We have to ask for help. Otherwise, the giant whale immortal palace's defenses won't hold him for long. The Whale Jade Crown Prince growled. He didn't want to ask his father for help, because it would be a sign of his incompetence and would lower his father's and the other elders' evaluation of him. But in this moment of life and death, when the entire giant whale clan was about to be wiped out, he couldn't care less. With a flip of his hand, he hurriedly took out a white jade bone, and after a moment of hesitation, he poured his monster chi into it. Wong! The jade bone instantly shone brightly, and in a blur of space, a huge image appeared in front of him. It was a vast platform, and countless sea monsters were busily preparing for something. Not only were there the giant whale clan, but there were also the spirit turtle clan, the black flood dragon clan, the bone kraken clan, and many other great monsters. "Whale Jade, what's the matter?" A deep voice sounded from the other side. Then, a majestic figure appeared in front of the Whale Jade Crown Prince. His face was not much different from humans, but there was a trace of the characteristics of the whale clan on his head. It was the king of the giant whale clan, the Whale Barbarian King. "Father, bad news. A human cultivator is taking advantage of our giant whale clan's weakened state to attack us. Currently, the Sea Snake Demon Clan, the Electric Fish Demon Clan, and many other demon clans have been slaughtered by him, and our giant whale clan is also under threat. In addition, Elder Whale Pang has also died in battle," the Whale Jade Crown Prince said in a panic. "What? Who is he? How strong is he?" The Whale Barbarian King was shocked. They did not expect that just as they were plotting to break the inhibition of the Dragon Palace and open a gap to step into it, their own backyard would catch fire and they were about to be wiped out. "I don't know, it's an unfamiliar human cultivator, but he's extremely strong, definitely at the primordial spirit realm," the Whale Jade Crown Prince said. Boom! At this time, a loud sound rang out. Outside the giant whale immortal palace, rays of spiritual light rose, forming a huge and sturdy water barrier. It was the defensive array of the immortal mansion. "This is bad. He's already here. He's attacking our giant whale immortal mansion, trying to break through our defensive formation." Whale Jade Crown Prince was startled, his face turning deathly pale. Trash! The Whale Barbarian Demon King let out a furious roar. His body suddenly transformed, revealing his true form. He was like a giant beast in the sea. Then it suddenly swung its tail, and a hidden force exploded on the surface of the sea. With a rumble, it quickly disappeared on the spot. The giant whale clan's residence should be here. From the outside, it looks very ordinary. Ziwa paused and hovered in the middle of the sea. Below him was a smooth sand dune. Looking from afar, there was nothing different about it, except that it was relatively rich in resources. Even with Ziwa's eyesight, it was difficult for him to detect the location of the giant whale clan's immortal cave. Immortal Mansion Grand Array. Ziwa knew that this was the result of the giant whale clan's grand formation activating and distorting its power. Not only was his perception extremely strong, he could clearly sense the minute changes within dozens of miles around him. His eyesight was also shockingly strong. It was as if he could see through heaven and earth. Naturally, he could see the traces of the grand formation. Although it was only a trace of a grand formation, it was easy to miss if one didn't pay attention. However, this trace was as clear as the bright moon in his eyes. In reality, reaching his level, it was already extremely difficult for ordinary grand formations to escape his perception, unless it was a grand formation that could affect the rules of heaven and earth and distort space. And it was obvious that the grand formation in the giant whale immortal mansion hadn't reached such a level. Therefore, with a thought, core essence surged in his body, and he waved his hand. Grand combat art, great magnetic slash. Hiss! A black thread silently sliced through the water. Its speed was unbelievably fast. All of this cut through the seawater, forming a clear upper and lower layer that didn't fall for a long time. In a flash, the black thread landed on the sand dune. Boom! Before he could really land on the sand dune, the surrounding scenery suddenly changed. A magnificent and huge immortal mansion palace appeared clearly in front of him. It was the giant whale clan's lair, the giant whale immortal mansion. Above the giant whale immortal mansion was a huge watery membrane of light that enveloped the entire immortal mansion. At that moment, Baizu's great origin magnetic slash landed on the watercolored light screen. Hiss, 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 the watery membrane of light glowed brightly. Although it looked like a thin layer, it was incomparably tough. Zu's great magnetic slash didn't break through it immediately. One must know that the great metamagnetic slash that he executed with his strength, and the great metamagnetic slash at that, was so powerful that it was comparable to the full-powered attack of a first-rate primordial spirit realm expert. It was enough to slay immortals and kill primordial spirit realm early-stage true cultivators. Huff huff, it's blocked. It's blocked. This immortal mansion formation is the giant whale clan's last line of defense. With the giant whale demon king personally overseeing it, it's extremely sturdy. Even late primordial spirit realm cultivators would find it difficult to break through. Although the demon king isn't here, we have the whale jade crown prince and the clan treasure, the mighty divine hammer, as the core of the formation. Even a mid-primordial spirit realm expert would find it difficult to break through the defenses. Although this human cultivator is strong, he hasn't reached the primordial spirit realm yet. Below the watery membrane of light, countless great demons of the giant whale clan were gathered. Naturally, there were many experts of the giant whale clan among them. At this moment, they were all looking up nervously in Baizu's direction, and even more so at the black thread that was slashing down. They watched as the black thread came into contact with the watery film of light formed by the Immortal Estate's grand formation, and then turned invisible. In an instant, they became noisy, and they were incomparably surprised and confident. Ziyue had killed countless enemies along the way. Even the Sea Snake Demon Clan and the Lightning Fish Clan had been wiped out. This had really frightened them. Now that they saw that the human cultivator's full-force attack had failed to break through the defense of the formation, they heaved a long sigh of relief and revealed looks of joy. Immediately after, the eyes of all the sea demons revealed endless ferocity and viciousness. Since this human cultivator couldn't break through their defense formation, it was time for this human cultivator to face the counterattack of the giant whale clan. This immortal mansion formation wasn't just for defense. It also had the ability to attack and trap enemies. It was one of the rare, earth-shattering formations that could combine attack, defense, and entrapment into one. With just the power of the formation, even an early primordial spirit realm expert would find it difficult to escape unscathed. Those at the Golden Core realm would definitely die. Chapter 729. Kill, kill, kill. As the roars rang out, the Immortal Mansion's grand formation suddenly began to shine brightly. Following it, several enormous water dragons sprang out and roared, looming over the area within a few dozen li of the immortal abode. These water dragons roared and intertwined with each other. Their bodies were tightly connected, forming a huge net that sealed Baizu within. At the same time, the water dragon spat out a cold current that resembled a dragon's breath and shot toward Baizu. This grand formation is interesting. Ziwa looked up at the huge net of water dragons in the air and the dragon breath attack coming toward him. His expression didn't change as he waved his hand. Suddenly, a huge black hole formed in the void. All the dragon breath was quickly sucked into the black hole. It was Ziyue's Heaven-Earth Sleeve that he'd used. Although the Heaven and Earth Sleeve was a forbidden technique, it was extremely useful in his hands. It could also be used as a defensive technique or even an offensive technique. That was why he'd used the stable space of Heaven-Earth Sleeve to absorb the dragon breath into it and block it. Sure enough, it was working wonders now. He waved his hand and a flying sword shot out. The Dao technique seed in his body spun slightly as it was activated to the extreme. In an instant, streaks of dazzling light flashed, and a resplendent and tyrannical power was injected into the flying sword. Chi! The flying sword rushed out, following an inexplicable trajectory. It seemed to be in the void, but also seemed to be in the folds of space. It was invisible to the naked eye. Puff, puff, puff. The flying sword shot out and stabbed the huge net of water dragons. The water dragon net that was completely formed by the formation froze for a moment, and its light quickly dimmed to the extreme. Then, with a pop, the huge net instantly shattered. The flying sword didn't lose any momentum and slashed down like a waterfall. It landed directly on the huge whale immortal mansion. Boom! The layer of watercolored light that had blocked by Ziwe's great magnetic slash seemed thin, but it was incomparably tough. It instantly shattered. At this moment, Bai Ziwe's flying sword seemed to have not lost its momentum, and it slammed into one of the great halls of the giant whale immortal manor. Rumble. The main hall was destroyed, and countless sea demons in the main hall were killed or injured. The grand formation of the immortal mansion is broken? How is that possible? Even a mid-primordial spirit realm cultivator would find it difficult to break through the grand formation of the immortal mansion. If it was guarded by a great king, even a late primordial spirit realm expert would have to retreat without success. How could it be broken so easily? This sword, just how powerful is this sword to be able to create such an inconceivable effect? As the pupils of countless sea monsters constricted, they couldn't help but feel confused. They didn't expect such a powerful grand formation to be unable to block the other party's sword. Could the power of the sword was stronger than a mid-primordial spirit realm cultivator's attack? It's over, it's all over. Is our huge whale clan really going to be annihilated here? The whale Jade Crown Prince despaired. If the grand formation was protecting them, he would still have some confidence. Even if he couldn't trap and kill the human cultivator, he would at least be able to block the other party's attack and wait for his father to come to their rescue. But he didn't expect the other party's strength to exceed the limits of his imagination and topple his understanding of all Golden Core realm cultivators. One sword had destroyed the grand formation of the huge whale clan's immortal mansion as easily as crushing dry weeds. The power of the sword was comparable to a mid or late primordial spirit realm cultivator's attack. No, that's not right. His immortal technique realm is definitely not just at the late Golden Core realm. Primordial spirit. He's definitely a super expert of the primordial spirit realm. He's definitely a mid or late primordial spirit realm cultivator who's not weaker than my father, or even stronger. The whale Jade Crown Prince's thoughts flashed wildly as he felt somewhat comforted. But in reality, he felt even more despaired. Because regardless of whether the other party had really concealed his cultivation and disguised himself as a late Golden Core realm cultivator with the strength of a mid or late primordial spirit realm cultivator, the other party's terrifying strength was real. It was enough to easily wipe out the huge whale clan, even the whale itself. The whale Jade Crown Prince's heart trembled, and he was immediately horrified. Sigh. Just then, a deep and heavy sigh suddenly sounded in the ears of all the sea demons. Naturally, it also reached Ziyue's ears. Next, a tall, burly figure appeared from within the Leviathan Immortal Palace. He looked very old, and even seemed a bit like the twilight years. Slowly, he strode out of the Leviathan Immortal Palace. Primordial Spirit Realm. This was a great demon whose strength had reached the Primordial Spirit Realm. Even though his face was old and faintly like twilight, it was a sign that the 5 decay of heaven and man had descended and his lifespan was nearing its end. But the extremely obvious characteristics of the huge whale clan and his face all indicated that he was a Primordial Spirit Realm expert of the huge whale clan. Mid-Primordial Spirit Realm, Great Demon. Ziyue's heart sank. The moment the flying sword rushed out and broke through the great formation, he felt a faint sense of threat. It was only when the sigh was heard and the other party formally walked out that he truly sensed the other party's presence. His expression suddenly became serious. Amid primordial spirit realm, Great Demon's combat strength was comparable to a late primordial spirit realm expert. Even though there was still an obvious aura of twilight on his body and his lifespan was only left with 100 years at most, he still retained the strength to fight. In his perception, his level of strength was definitely higher than the mid-stage primordial spirit cultivator of Mount Qingxian, whom he had met before, Daoist Xianxian. Wild Whale Grandmaster? Wild Whale Grandmaster? Rumor has it that the Wild Whale Grandmaster's lifespan was exhausted and he died. I didn't expect him to still be alive and have been staying in our huge whale immortal palace all this time. I should have guessed it long ago. How powerful was the Wild Whale Grandmaster? How could he die so easily when there was no illness or disaster? He must have been deliberately cultivating in seclusion in the immortal palace to guard against a great enemy. That's why he gradually disappeared and did not reveal himself. Aha! We're saved. Our huge whale clan is saved. The Wild Whale Grandmaster is a mid-primordial spirit realm expert. If he reveals his true form, his actual combat strength is even greater than that of a late primordial spirit realm human cultivator. With the Wild Whale Grandmaster holding the fort, even if all the experts of the Great Whale Immortal City came in person, they would return empty-handed this time, let alone just one person. Return empty-handed? He has already attacked our huge whale immortal palace. How can we let him escape unscathed? Kill. We must kill him. If we don't kill him this time, grind his bones to dust, and burn his soul to ashes, how can we raise the prestige of our huge whale clan? The sea demons' faces were suddenly filled with incomparable excitement as they stared fervently at the old man covered in twilight. Chapter 730. The Wild Whale Forefather, as his name suggested, was also a very deranged individual. If anyone dared to provoke the giant whale clan, the Wild Whale Forefather would definitely retaliate 1,000 times over. He would not tolerate even the slightest bit of loss. Thus, the number of sea demon clans he had exterminated numbered more than 10. This time, this human cultivator had come knocking on their door and killed countless giant whale clan members. The Wild Whale Forefather would definitely not let this go. He would personally take action and take revenge 1,000 times over. Wild Whale Forefather, I didn't expect you to still be alive and have been staying in the immortal estate all this time. The Whale Prince, who had already given up all hope, was overjoyed. He shouted excitedly, "Forefather, don't worry." The Wild Whale Forefather nodded, then turned to Ziyue. His voice was low and deep. "Fellow Taoist of the human race, may I ask how my giant whale clan has offended you? Why would you kill us like this? You even want to break through our immortal estate's grand formation and massacre us? There is no personal conflict between us." Ziyue was silent for a moment. Then, "Don't you think you've gone a little overboard?" The Wild Whale Forefather's expression changed slightly, his voice growing deeper. "Overboard? If I want to kill you, I'll kill you. Why should I explain myself to you?" Ziyue smiled faintly, his voice calm. "Fellow Taoist, you are indeed insolent." The Wild Whale Forefather was furious, but after a moment of silence, he continued, "This time, as long as you retreat of your own accord, our giant whale clan can let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." "Forefather." The Whale Jade Prince's face grew anxious. The other sea demons were also greatly surprised. "Let him go. Let bygones be bygones." When had the Wild Whale Forefather ever been so easy to talk to? After all, this human cultivator had annihilated 3 subordinate clans of the giant whale clan in such a short period of time. Not only that, but he had also killed more than 100 of their clansmen, and even destroyed the giant whale Immortal Manor's grand formation. Based on their understanding of the Wild Whale Forefather, even if he wasn't furious, he would definitely do everything he could to take revenge. How is it? Wild Whale Ancestor ignored the Whale Jade Crown Prince and the others. Instead, he turned his attention to Ziyue. If it could, it was naturally unwilling to lower its head and let this human cultivator leave. However, things were different now. Presently, he was old in the end, and he didn't have much lifespan left. He only had less than 100 years left to live. Even if he still retained the strength to fight, his lifespan would definitely be reduced greatly after a battle, and he might even perish. It was not afraid of death. But now that the Dragon Palace was about to appear, there would definitely be secret treasures and inheritances that could help it advance further. If it could step into the latter stage of the primordial spirit realm, not only would its strength increase greatly, its lifespan would also increase greatly. It would not be difficult for it to live for another 1,000 years. Naturally, it did not want to be involved in more battles and increase its risk, not to mention the other party's strength. It had clearly sensed the power of Ziyue's sword. The latter stage of the primordial spirit realm was an attack that had truly stepped into the latter stage of the primordial spirit realm. Even if it unleashed its full strength, it would not be able to match the power of that sword. Even if Ziyue was indeed only at the advanced stage of the golden core realm in its senses, the strangeness of Ziyue's sword strike caused it to arouse dense fear in the end, and it didn't dare act rashly. Therefore, after careful consideration, it decided to concede and let the other party leave. What if I say no? Ziyue's gaze fell on the attribute panel, and then swept across the numerous sea monsters. Currently, the number of his spiritual energy had just reached 700 million. Although it was not a small number, there was still a huge gap before he could break through his immortal technique realm and step into the next level. In his eyes, this group of sea monsters before him were spiritual energy. Naturally, he was not willing to let them go so easily. Moreover, he had come here with such great fanfare. How could he be willing to return empty-handed? It seems that you are unwilling to be kind, fellow Taoist. Then don't blame me for being ruthless. Wild Whale Ancestor said as he waved his hand. Boom! The ground of the immortal residence suddenly shook violently, and then a huge war hammer rushed out as if it had been summoned. It was the treasure of the giant whale clan, and also the formation of the giant whale clan's immortal residence. It was a supreme-grade primordial spirit treasure, the giant strength hammer. The giant strength hammer was of an extremely high grade. It had been continuously refined by generations of primordial spirit realm experts of the giant whale clan, and its grade had been forcibly raised. Therefore, although its power was weaker than that of a true supreme-grade primordial spirit treasure, it was still better than an ordinary upper-grade primordial spirit treasure. Moreover, it was precisely because it had been refined by generations of primordial spirit realm experts that it did not need to be refined again. As long as the primordial spirit realm experts of the giant whale clan activated it with their own origin, they would be able to use it. Rumble. The void shook violently, and a terrifying force could not help but spread out. Just the pressure of the aura alone was enough to make the surrounding sea monsters unable to bear it, and they all retreated into the distance. Die! Wild Whale Ancestor roared as he swung the giant strength hammer fiercely. A terrifying force quickly pierced through the void, fiercely attacking Ziyue. This hammer was a hammer strike of pure strength. There was no fluctuation of Yuan Qi at all. There was no need for any Yuan Qi enhancement. Just the crushing force of the force caused the seawater to evaporate, and a terrifying explosion sounded. Then, with a burst of power, it rushed towards Ziyue at an extreme speed. What a powerful strike! Ziyue's expression did not change, but a strange look flashed in the depths of his eyes. His knowledge and experience were naturally extraordinary. However, a strike like this hammer, which was made entirely out of pure strength, still caused him to feel a trace of astonishment. However, it's not much of a threat to me. Ziyue then smiled confidently and said loudly. The purple core essence in his body gathered, and all of it poured into the Tao technique seed of the primordial magnetic divine light. Chi chi chi. The void froze, and the space collapsed slightly, becoming dark and chaotic. The laws of heaven and earth suddenly wrinkled with the descent of the primordial magnetic force, and the distance became unpredictable. Then he waved his hand. A beam of divine light flashed out and met the huge divine hammer head-on. Boom! The giant strength hammer collided with Ziyue's primordial magnetic divine light, and an explosion shook the sky. Under the pressure of the terrifying distance, Wild Whale Ancestor's expression changed drastically, and he had no time to hesitate. Origin energy poured out continuously. Suddenly, the twilight color on Wild Whale Ancestor's face became even more intense, as if he had become even older in this short period of time, and his lifespan had been greatly reduced. However, the continuous flow of origin energy into the giant's strength hammer gave him some strength to spare. The giant's strength hammer trembled, and he swung a second time. Boom! Chapter 731. The Void Trembled. The second strike of the divine hammer finally neutralized the power of Zue's primordial magnetic divine light and blocked it. So strong, this human cultivator is indeed not simple. This strike has also reached the late-stage primordial spirit realm. If not for the fact that I am holding the divine hammer of mighty strength, I would have been severely injured by this strike. But even so, every time I use the divine hammer of mighty strength, it consumes my origin energy. After a few more times, I will be exhausted and die from the exhaustion of my lifespan. The wild whale patriarch's face paled slightly, and a trace of bitterness rose in his heart. He had already guessed that this human cultivator's strength was extremely terrifying from the previous strike. But it was only when he truly clashed with his opponent that he truly sensed how terrifying his opponent was. Most importantly, his opponent was only at the late-stage Golden Core realm. It was truly hard for him to imagine what kind of existence could unleash such a terrifying strike and possess such terrifying battle prowess as a late-stage Golden Core realm cultivator. A divine beast? Even if a true dragon was alive, it would be far inferior to his opponent at the same cultivation level. Since when did the human race have such a terrifying, peerless genius? That hammer is indeed extraordinary. However, I would like to see how many times you can block my attacks. Zue had never thought that he would be able to kill his opponent with a single strike of the primordial magnetic divine light. Therefore, he did not care that his opponent could block his strike. Lightning flashed on his body in an instant, and his speed was extremely fast, but his eyes were filled with murderous intent. The Five-God Emperor's imperial robe protected his body as his flying sword gathered power and suddenly shot out. It seemed to be wandering in the depths of the void, and even a Golden Core realm cultivator would find it difficult to detect its trajectory. Even a primordial spirit realm expert would only feel a flash of light. It was fast and extremely strange. If by Zue's casting of the divine light of primordial magnetic great divine light was fast, his enemies could still make some judgments. However, when he cast the 9 extinction divine sword with his intrinsic flying sword, it was truly unfathomable, formless and formless. Perhaps only Golden Core realm experts who had awakened the Eye of the God, or Golden Core realm experts who had cultivated the Eye of the God, or even Primordial Soul realm experts, could see through the distortion of the rules and see the traces of the flying sword. As for the giant whale clan, although their racial talents were extremely strong, they were more focused on their physical strength. Under the same realm, his strength could be said to be invincible. As for eyesight, it could be said that there was almost no one in the Sea Demon clan that had such tyrannical eyesight. In the deep sea, it was dark and gloomy. Many sea demons' eyes would degenerate. Most of them had to rely on their perception to survive. Therefore, when Zue's flying sword neared the Wild Whale clan ancestor and truly emerged from the depths of the void, the Wild Whale clan ancestor finally sensed it. His expression changed abruptly, and he, who had already infused his origin power into the divine hammer of mighty strength, suddenly swung it down. After all, he was a mid-stage primordial soul realm expert. Even if he did not have much time left and dusk was approaching, his instincts allowed him to predict the trajectory of the flying sword's attack. So strong. However, even though he had predicted the trajectory of the attack and swung the divine hammer of mighty strength down in time, the moment he truly encountered the sword, his heart still skipped a beat and a sense of panic grew in his heart. This sword was too strong. It far exceeded the limits of his endurance, and was even stronger than the previous attack of the divine light of primordial magnetic divine light. If it had been the previous attack, he could have relied on his origin power to summon a second divine hammer of mighty strength to block it. However, he could not block this sword, and he did not even have time to use his origin power. He only felt an unstoppable force gushing out. Under the terrifying impact of this force, even the enormous strength of the giant whale clan could not withstand it. The divine hammer of mighty strength collapsed, and the flying sword flashed and quickly pierced his head. Its defensive means its tough skull couldn't withstand the attack at all and was directly pierced through. He was dead. This wild whale clan is actually not weak, especially when he wields that war hammer. He is definitely the strongest enemy I have ever encountered. He is far stronger than the strongest existence I have ever encountered, Taoist Su Xian of the Azure Mystic Mountain. However, my current strength is also much stronger than when I was in the Mirror Lake Secret Realm. Not only has my realm increased to the late-stage Aura's Core realm, but my Tao techniques and 9 Extinction Divine Sword have also been raised to the level of perfection. Naturally, I can easily kill such an expert. Ziyue was also a little surprised at first. However, after a brief calculation of the changes in his strength, he quickly calmed down. His advantage in battle strength was simply too strong. It could not be calculated with common sense. Although the other party was strong, how could they be stronger than him? Such an outcome was very normal. Through this battle, Ziyue also had a clear understanding of his own strength. Against a late-stage primordial spirit realm expert, it might still be difficult to distinguish and calculate. However, against a mid-stage primordial spirit realm expert, regardless of whether they were cultivators or demons, peerless geniuses or great demons with frightening bloodlines, he would be able to crush them. The Wild Whale Clan Elder is dead. He died at the hands of that human cultivator? How is that possible? Sensing that the Wild Whale Clan Elder's vitality had been extinguished, his aura had dissipated, and even his primordial spirit had not managed to escape. All the sea demons were stunned. They could not believe their eyes. The Wild Whale Clan Elder was a mid-stage primordial spirit realm expert with unparalleled battle strength. At his peak, he was ranked in the top 5 of the 5 major sea demon clans within a 100,000-mile radius. However, he was easily killed by this human cultivator. A feeling of despair instantly surged into the hearts of all the sea demons. Even Wild Whale Forefather wasn't a match for this human cultivator. Who else could possibly block his slaughter? Run. Hurry and run. Some sea demons hurriedly came to their senses, their demonic power surging as they frantically tried to flee. In fact, before that sea demon had even cried out, some other sea demons had already reacted and silently fled into the distance. Among them was the whale Jade Crown Prince. At this moment, he was already 50 miles away from the battlefield with lightning speed. Humph, do you think you can escape? However, Ziyue snorted coldly and lightning flashed from his body. Gee, his speed was so fast that he left a trail of lightning in the sea. As he flew in pursuit, his intrinsic flying sword flashed like a stream of light. Puff, puff, puff. One sea demon after another was pierced by his flying sword. After a few dozen breaths, Ziyue turned around and hovered above the giant whale residence. With a wave of his hand, he grabbed the giant strength hammer that the Wild Whale Clan Elder had used. SSS so heavy. Even with my strength, if not for the support of my core essence, I would not be able to lift it. The heaviness in his hand made Ziyue's expression change slightly. One had to know that as his immortal techniques improved, the pure violet core essence's strength also increased his physical strength to a terrifying degree. His immense strength was not inferior to any monster of the same level. However, when he was holding this heavy hammer, he felt that it was somewhat strenuous. One could imagine how heavy it was. Chapter 732. A Supreme Grade Primordial Spirit Treasure. This warhammer is indeed a supreme-grade primordial spirit treasure. It seems to be the most precious treasure of the giant whale clan. The crafting method is very unique. It can be used directly without refining. However, if you want to activate this hammer, you will need an unimaginable amount of power. Ziyue looked at the war hammer in his hand. It could be used without refining. This alone was enough to tempt countless people. Moreover, the war hammer was of extremely high quality. It was a supreme-grade, primordial spirit treasure. Its value was extremely high. Even though it was similarly extremely difficult for an ordinary cultivator to utilize such a precious treasure, it was truly the heaviest magic treasure Ziyue had ever seen after all. With the strength of his body, he was only barely able to lift it up, and if he wanted to truly utilize it, then the strength required would at least be 10 times greater. 10 times the terrifying strength, other than the giant whale clan. Who else could easily achieve such a feat? Besides this supreme-grade primordial spirit treasure warhammer, there are also many treasures in this immortal mansion. Ziyue looked at the huge giant whale immortal mansion. The entire giant whale immortal mansion was larger than the Mirror Lake secret realm that he had destroyed previously. Moreover, the giant whale clan was one of the kings of the 5 great sea demon clans. Almost all of their treasures were stored in this immortal mansion. Its value was much higher than the Mirror Lake secret realm. Therefore, Ziyue did not hesitate. He quickly opened the North Underworld Grotto Heaven. Soon after, a large group of North Nether sect cultivators rushed out from within and once again embarked on the journey of migration. Of course, because they were in the deep sea, the cultivators who appeared this time were all cultivators above the aperture opening realm. In total, there were hundreds of them. With them, the migration will be much more efficient. Unfortunately, with my current strength, although I can move mountains and rivers, I can only move spirit mountains of the 3rd rank and below. If I want to move spirit mountains of the 4th rank and above into the Grotto Heaven, not only will it take a lot of time and effort, but it may not even be possible. Not to mention that under the giant whale immortal mansion, there is a mid-grade spirit vein in the sea. Otherwise, it would not be so troublesome. Ziyue glanced at the busy disciples, and a thought flashed through his mind. Then, he looked at his attribute panel. My soul energy has already reached over 970 million points. With just over 20 million points, his soul energy could reach 1 billion. 1 billion is another threshold for me. Now that it had reached 1 billion, perhaps the attribute panel would need to be upgraded again. While it's good that the stats panel has been upgraded, it's not the right time to do so. Ziyue knew that every time his attribute panel leveled up, a new ability would be created that would be of great help to him. Therefore, in his heart, he longed for the attribute panel to be upgraded. He hoped that the upgraded attribute panel would be able to better assist him and allow his strength to increase without limit as soon as possible. However, he didn't forget the danger that enveloped him at this moment. The 3 superpowers and his current location were the ruins of the giant whale clan's immortal abode. Not to mention, he also wanted to go to the so-called True Dragon Ravine to see for himself. He was very curious about the legendary Dragon Palace. Naturally, the attribute panel couldn't be upgraded yet. Otherwise, if he couldn't use it for a month, not only would his ability to continue fighting be greatly reduced, it would also be very dangerous if he encountered an unimaginable enemy. At the very least, he couldn't use the power of time reversal to avoid them in time. In that case, I'll have to consume some of this soul energy. Ziyue calculated silently. Remarkable abilities and great remarkable abilities were no longer of much significance to his current strength. As for Dao techniques, he did have another Dao technique that could be upgraded with the help of the attribute panel. However, he hadn't cultivated the Great Path Dharma form for a long time. Now, he was only at 21% of the uninitiated level, and there was still some distance to go. Naturally, he couldn't use soul energy to upgrade it. Therefore, I can only upgrade the Immortal Technique realm. His current Immortal Technique realm had reached the late Golden Elixir realm, and the next step was the peak Golden Elixir realm. From the early Golden Elixir realm to the middle Golden Elixir realm, I spent 500 million points of soul energy, and from the middle golden elixir realm to the late golden elixir realm, I spent 1 billion. Now, if I want to upgrade from the late golden elixir realm to the peak golden elixir realm, I'll need 2 billion. 2 billion points of soul energy was almost unimaginable in his eyes before. But now, he didn't feel that it was unbearable. Of course, he didn't have 200,000 points of soul energy now. However, I can also use soul energy to gradually increase my strength to the peak golden elixir realm. Ziyue had a plan long ago. Therefore, he didn't hesitate too much. By consuming 100 million points of soul energy, I can increase the cultivation progress of the late-stage supreme primordial Tao technique from 0% to 5%. Although this kind of increase isn't as obvious as a direct breakthrough to the next realm, it can increase my strength. But it can also increase my strength by a small margin. Many little drops make an ocean, and the quantitative change will lead to a qualitative change. Naturally, it can increase my strength by a large margin. Ziyue's eyes became firm, and he quickly made his choice. Upgrade. In an instant, the cultivation progress of his supreme primordial Tao technique increased by a small margin, and it reached the late-stage 5% level. In this short period of time, the strength of his purple core essence, the strength of his soul, and the strength of his physical body seemed to have gone through hundreds of years of bitter cultivation. As the cultivation progressed, they also increased by a small margin. Although the increase wasn't much, it wasn't small either. This was because he could clearly feel that when he held the giant hammer in his hand, it was much easier. This was a change that occurred after his physical strength increased by a small margin. Of course, the most obvious change was naturally his purple core essence. It was obviously more vigorous than before, and the size of his golden elixir had also increased by a small margin. On the contrary, the change in the strength of his soul wasn't obvious. Only when he used his techniques would he feel the increase in his combat strength after the strength of his soul became stronger. Continue. However, the expenditure of 100 million points of soul energy wasn't safe. He needed to ensure that the number of soul energy on his attribute panel was always in a safe position. This position had to be below 500 million. Therefore, Ziyue quickly made his move again. By spending 100 million points of soul energy, I can increase the cultivation progress of the late-stage supreme primordial Tao technique from 5% to 10%. Upgrade. By spending 100 million points of soul energy. Upgrade. Just like that, Ziyue chose to upgrade one after another. He directly increased his cultivation progress to 30% of the late stage. Chapter 733. Now that his cultivation had reached 30% of the advanced stage, Ziyue's physical strength, the density of his pure purple core essence, and the strength of his soul had all increased by a notch. His strength had also increased greatly. I've consumed 600 million points of soul energy in one wave, which has greatly increased my strength. However, I'm only left with 370 million points of soul energy. Ziyue's gaze returned to his status panel, and he resisted the urge to continue improving. Although he knew that it was good to improve temporarily and good to keep improving continuously, he was even more aware of the importance of leaving some leeway. It wasn't that easy to replenish his soul energy in a short period of time after exhausting it. This time, he'd spent a few hours from beginning to end. Who is it? Who is that so-called human cultivator? Fu Yin Fan? Or Hua Dingshan? Wan Zhongyan? Or Mo Fan and the others who recently appeared in the nearby seas? In the endless deep sea, the king of the giant whale clan, the whale barbarian king, had transformed into his true form and was traveling rapidly through the deep sea. His mind was constantly pondering, trying to guess what kind of existence would suddenly make a move on his giant whale clan's giant whale immortal mansion at this moment. However, no matter who it is, if they think they can make a move on my giant whale immortal mansion while I'm not here, that's just too laughable. How can the resources of my giant whale clan, especially those of the smaller sea monster clans, compare. Not to mention the strength of the Immortal Mansion's grand formation. Just the colossal hammer alone is enough to stop a few nascent spirit cultivators. Not to mention, my giant whale clan still has a hidden great beast, the wild whale ancestor. Thinking of this, the whale barbarian king calmed down slightly. He thought of the wild whale ancestor's strength. Even if he wasn't at his peak, he wasn't much weaker than him. With the assistance of the Immortal Mansion's grand formation and the colossal hammer, he should be able to stop the enemy. However, he didn't know why, but his mind felt somewhat uneasy. It made him uneasy. Therefore, even if he was very confident in the Immortal Mansion's grand formation and the wild whale ancestor, he didn't dare to be negligent. Suddenly, the heart of the whale barbarian king, who was hurrying at top speed, felt an inexplicable sense of sorrow. His expression abruptly changed. Oh no! He knew that the worst outcome had already occurred. Its body paused, and a terrifying demonic power immediately rushed out. Just as it was about to erupt with all its strength to continue its journey, its body suddenly moved again, and its huge tail swung. Ha! The seawater exploded, and its huge body made an unbelievably agile turn at this moment, dodging the attack of a huge sword. But then, another golden awl shot out like a bolt of lightning. Barbarian Jing casually swung his warhammer. Ding! With a loud bang, the golden awl returned without any success. Hua Dingshan, Wan Zhongyun, it really is you. You actually took advantage of my absence to attack my giant whale clan. Barbarian Jing said, through gritted teeth. As soon as he finished speaking, two figures appeared in the distance. They were the old city lord of Hua Dingshan and the island lord of Middle Cloud Island, Wan Zhongyun. Attack your giant whale clan? Hua Dingshan and Wan Zhongyun both had a doubtful look on their faces. However, he soon revealed a trace of disdain and said, Jing man, don't you think you're overestimating your giant whale clan? Do you think the giant whale clan is worthy of so many of our experts joining forces to deal with it? Behind Hua Dingshan and Wan Zhongyun, the figures of many powerful figures also appeared. The strongest human cultivator within 10,000 miles of the sea was Fu Yun Fan, the celestial spirit sex Mo Fan, the 9-star Dao Palace's Wang Shueji, the Azure Sea sex Sidu Hai, the 10,000 mystery sex Su Liming, numerous primordial spirit cultivators, and dozens of golden core cultivators had arrived together. Just their auras alone were enough to topple the heavens. Hiss! It's over. Barbarian Jing's heart sank as despair rose in his heart. If it were only Hua Dingshan and Wan Zhongyun, even if they were stronger than him, he was confident that he could escape unscathed. However, so many human cultivators had appeared together. There were as many as 8 primordial spirit cultivators, including Fu Yun Fan, who was stronger than him, Mo Fan, who was no weaker than him, and Wang Shueji, who was the Confucian god. If it's not you, then who is it? He suppressed his shock and pretended to be angry. However, he was quickly thinking of a way to escape. Although our giant whale immortal city has always wanted to exterminate your giant whale clan, we've come from afar. But after we came out of the sea, we rushed all the way from the void and didn't have time to enter the water. If it weren't for the fact that we sensed your aura nearby, we wouldn't have taken action. Hua Dingshan spoke from afar. So it really isn't you? Then who is it? How dare you barge into our giant whale immortal mansion alone? Barbarian Jing's huge tail swayed slightly as he spoke, causing the sea to splash. Could it be that another mysterious expert has appeared in the nearby sea? Who could it be? I heard that demon cultivators have appeared nearby recently. Could it be one of those demon cultivators? Immediately, someone began to mutter to himself in surprise. On the other hand, Mo Fan of the Heavenly Spirit sect and Wang Shueji of the 9-star Dao Palace's eyes flashed when they heard Barbarian Jing's words. Wang Shueji couldn't help but step forward and ask, "Do you know what that person looks like? What level of cultivation is he at? You know that person?" Barbarian Jing was shocked. "If I'm not mistaken, I've known this person for a long time. Wang Xueji smiled faintly. But why should I tell you? Barbarian Jing replied stiffly. Have you heard of the primordial spirit seed art? It's a secret art that directly grafts the primordial spirit of a cultivator or monster cultivator onto a puppet and makes it work for the cultivator. Coincidentally, when I entered a secret realm, I obtained the inheritance of the primordial spirit seed art. With that said, he sized up the whale barbarian monster king with interest and continued. I've studied this secret technique thoroughly, but I haven't had the time to use it yet. Now it seems that I already have a test subject. Barbarian Jing's heart turned cold. Normally, he wouldn't be afraid of Wang Xueji, especially in the sea, where he had a great advantage. But now, with so many human experts gathered here, he had to consider the deterrent force of the other party's words. If he really tried that method, he would suffer a fate worse than death. Even if a puppet had vitality and could live in another way, it would be controlled by others for the rest of its life. It would be difficult for it to break free. He didn't want to try it. Chapter 734. It wasn't that it didn't doubt the veracity of Wang Xueji's words, but it didn't dare to gamble on such a matter. If it was true, it could foresee that the latter half of its life would be extremely miserable. It would be even more painful than dying directly. There's no harm in telling you. As the whale barbarian beast king spoke, it calmly looked at the numerous primordial spirit experts surrounding it as it made up its mind. Then, its demonic primordial energy flowed, and a void image appeared in the void. In the image, an extremely young and handsome cultivator in a white robe with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes appeared in front of everyone. Although the whale barbarian beast king didn't personally participate in the battle, the whale clan naturally had their means to transmit the image of Ziyue to it. Therefore, they had the means to completely reveal Ziyue's face in front of everyone. It really is him. I already knew that he would appear near the giant whale immortal mansion. I didn't expect to find him so easily after searching high and low for him. Wang Xueji's eyes lit up. On the other side, True Supremacy Mo Fan's face also revealed a look of interest. Do you know who he is? The whale barbarian beast king couldn't help but ask through gritted teeth. Taoist North Ming. True Supremacy Mo Fan casually explained. He had to admit that this Taoist North Ming was indeed a great genius. If it weren't for the fact that he had provoked the Celestial Spirit sect, he really would have thought of recruiting him. Taoist North Ming? Okay, I'll remember it. The whale barbarian beast king roared, and a blood-red light suddenly erupted from its body. At this moment, its flesh and blood suddenly bloomed, and its huge body exploded at the same time. Streams of blood splattered in all directions, dyeing the entire sea red. At this moment, its body suddenly shot forward. Chi. It quickly rushed forward in the direction that belonged to Fu Yunfan. It knew that it was actually in the most dangerous situation at this moment. It was surrounded by 8 primordial soul realm experts. Almost every corner was guarded by an expert. It could only break out of the encirclement if it went all out. That was why it had so decisively unleashed the demon god's violent blood skill, which stimulated its potential. Furthermore, with the help of a secret technique, it had burned 100 years of its lifespan to directly raise its strength to an unimaginable limit. As for the reason why they chose Fu Yunfan, who was the most powerful among them, to break out of the encirclement, it was because there were more golden elixir realm cultivators behind him. If that was the case, Fu Yunfan would definitely have some misgivings when he made a move. This was an opportunity for it. Oof. I've been guarding against you for a long time. Too naive. Weak. If we really let you escape in front of so many of us, wouldn't we lose all our face? In your dreams, Fu Yunfan, Huat Dingshan, Wan Zhongyun, True Highness Mo Fan, and the others yelled. They immediately executed their moves, as if they had long prepared for it. Even the golden core realm cultivators in the outer regions were making their moves. Boom, boom. All kinds of moves, great mystiques, offensive spells, binding spells, soul attacks were unleashed. The densely packed whale barbarian beast king was drowned in them. Charge! The whale barbarian beast king roared. The blood-red light on its body continued to blossom, as if it did not care about the attacks that landed on its body. It continued to swing its war hammer at Fu Yunfan. It also spat out water arrows, the power of which spread in all directions and shot at the Golden Core Realm cultivators. Although the water arrows were shot in all directions, their power seemed to be scattered. However, no matter what, it was still an attack from a mid-stage primordial spirit realm beast king. Furthermore, it was an attack that had unleashed its full potential and burned its lifespan. If it landed on the Golden Core Realm cultivators, just one attack would probably be enough to kill them. This included Hua Fengyu, the city lord of the Great Whale Immortal City, whose strength was comparable to an emperor. Fu Yunfan harumphed coldly. He waved his hand, and a huge watery canopy immediately appeared in the void. Boom! 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 The water arrows landed on the watery canopy, but did not budge at all. Instead, they all shattered. Fu Yunfan was a veteran primordial spirit realm cultivator. His strength had reached the late-stage primordial spirit realm. He had also mastered the watery canopy defensive Dao spell, and its defensive power was extremely strong. Even if the whale barbarian beast king unleashed its full strength, unleashed its full potential, and burned its lifespan, it would not be able to break through. At this moment, the attacks of the other powerful cultivators also landed on the whale barbarian beast king. The power of 8 primordial spirit realm cultivators attacking at the same time was too terrifying. First, the 3 attacks landed on its body. Even though it had thick skin and thick flesh, its flesh was still torn apart. The huge wound almost broke its entire tail. Following which, 2 binding Dao techniques landed on his body consecutively. These 2 binding Dao spells were like a cage, locking its huge body in place. Even though it quickly activated the power of its origin bloodline and broke free with unparalleled strength, it still slowed down its speed. Just as it was about to use the art of soul ignition again to increase its power, 2 consecutive attacks from the primordial spirit rushed into its body and landed on its primordial spirit. These 2 soul attacks were extremely dangerous and strange. They were like a bone-chilling wind, but also like a decadent sound. They caused its will to sink and its thoughts to become muddled. Even its eyes began to lose focus. As a result, his speed was greatly reduced once again. Then die. Fu Yunfan did not even look at the war hammer that was rushing towards him. He only controlled the watery canopy to block in front of him. Then his flying sword shot out. Poof! At the same time, Hua Dingshan, Wan Zhongyun, and the others launched their second and third attacks. Chi! Chi! The whale barbarian beast king's entire body instantly shattered and turned into a bloody mist. Even its primordial spirit did not manage to escape before it died. It was dead. This whale barbarian beast king is extremely cunning and difficult to deal with. It's rare for him to be alone. I didn't think we'd be able to kill him so easily this time. Hua Dingshan looked at the blood-red sea and sighed. It's also luck. If it weren't for Senior Fu and the other fellow Taoists forming the formation, it wouldn't be so easy for us to keep the whale barbarian king from leaving just now. Wan Zhongyun chimed in, his tone somewhat conflicted. However, this is also a good thing. The whale barbarian beast king is dead, and it's not hard to hear from his tone that the giant whale tribe's base has been breached by Taoist Dark North. This means that the threat to our giant whale immortal city has been mostly eliminated. Now only the Bone Kuan tribe is left. A trace of joy appeared on Hua Dingshan's face as he spoke. For giant whale immortal city, the greatest threats were usually the giant whale tribe and the Bone Kuan tribe. Now that the threat of the giant whale tribe had been eliminated and only the Bone Kuan tribe was left, things were much easier for them. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.